边一了一个，两个。
记得。
我这边车位置，好了。哎呦，哎呀！我觉得可以下来了，队长来，
打头了，
走，
左边，
刘备。这反斜了，跑到去反斜了，
倒了，
牛逼！
两房在左边右边，
有这点数。
注意不一定要尝试，
有点数。
倒了，
先抽着，我要回去，我根本尝试不了。我说这边好像还有一个兄弟啊。倒了，
三级都倒了，
我左边位呀，那个来，上不来。中间也还有一个。走了，帮我注意一点的。OK， 我没烟了，烟里我打一，3打1，准备。
outside, downstairs. After you guys. Go away. Go away. I don't know. Chris? Nice. We should have. People outside running around.
I see two right, I think fuck someone's head.
Running outside west. Running with the pipes right now. On the pipes, boys. He's below you, boys.
Is he inside?
Insta.
Hold it. Yeah. Killed that guy.
Nice.
Hello? Nice. One more way.
First good left side, hold right side.
Yeah, I'm on the way. Nice.
So it's time for APAC. In PCS3 APAC, we see a lot of familiar names, the names that we have seen at least once in PCS event, but there are 4 brand new teams. Unicorn Cyber Da Nang and Hydra Gaming from Vietnam, and Sharper Esports from Thailand, and Angel Alliance from Philippines. Which team do you think have a chance to win over PCS3?
Yeah, to me it looks like that Sharper Esports probably has the best chance out of these 4 teams, being that they are 3 out of the 4 members of Golden Cat. So this is a really strong Thai team. I'm really looking forward to seeing this team perform again with mostly the same members.
And from Thailand, I really want to talk about Miramar United Esports. They have been playing so well from all PCS events, but now they have added Joman to their roster. He was one of the best fragger in PCS1, leading Q Confirm to the championship. How do you think you always picked Miramar United Esports?
Yeah, I really like Miramar United. I mean, they're one of the best edge teams in the world. They've been really, really close as well. They've gotten 2nd and 3rd a lot here at the PCS events, and I think adding Jaumans gives them a lot of extra firepower on a team that already had a lot of firepower, makes them again one of my favorites for PCS3 APAC.
Moving on to Vietnamese team, we really have to talk about Divine. They picked up a new sponsorship with LG, so it's LG Divine, and they won the first ever championship in PUBG Vietnam series.
Yeah, this is their first regional championship. They got their first global championship before they got a regional one, but we're seeing why they got a global championship now. They are clearly the top of the class in Vietnam.
Actually, I know one player from Unicorn Cyber Da Nang from Vietnam. I heard that Blue has an interesting story. story.
Yeah, he really was kind of a zero to hero story, so I'm really excited to see this team on the stage. He had in the previous PVS, he had 0 kills through 12 games, so it was, it was kind of a struggle. Maybe he was nervous, I'm not sure. But then most recent PVS season, he had a 1v7. He won a 1v7. And that's actually incredible. That is, I don't care what region you're in, that's really hard to do, and especially in Vietnam.
Yeah, it was a clutch win. Moving on to Indonesia, we do have this team, Victim Rise. They're always a very strong team from Indonesia. What do you think about this team?
Absolutely, they have a shot. They have been so good at many tournaments this year, whether it be in the PCSs or something else. They're incredible, so they're always the top of the class in Indonesia, and maybe this is their time to shine.
And lastly, we really have to talk about Fury. They were the second place in last PCS2 APAC. They were this close to winning, but now I heard that they bolstered their roster.
Yeah, I think Fury did pick up Flood onto the team, and Juxi went over to BAE, so they kind of swapped rosters a little bit here. But for Fury, they continue to be the top of their region. They always have been so far this year. But now with Flood, let's see if they can go from that second place and maybe topple a team like Divine or Buriram and take that first place spot.
So last but not least is Europe. Europe is always fun to watch because there are tons of great teams. Which team do you think have a chance to win the last PCS3 championship in Europe?
Yeah, there's a lot of really good teams in Europe, so it's definitely hard to choose. You got to look at Navi again first. My pick for PCS2 didn't go so well for them in that event, but they won the PCS3 qualifiers in Europe, so they're looking very, very strong here. Once again, the real question is, can they maintain that strong form going into the finals?
I saw that Northern Lights also ranked second in the group stage. They've won the PCS Charity Showdown, so they know how to win. What do you think about this team?
Yeah, I'm expecting good things out of the Northern Lights. They're very consistent, another really strong team behind the likes of players like Batulins. So no doubt that we know that if they play well and they show up, that they can win an event.
And we have FaZe Clan, the former champion of PCS2 Europe. What do you think about this team? Do you think they have a chance to win again?
I mean, I think FaZe Clan has to be the favorite coming into this event. It's the end of the year. It's late stage phase. We know how good they are as the year rolls along. We've seen it time and time again. Got Gustav leading the way with the macro play calling and Fuzzface doing the micro play calling now. And of course, there's always Uba. So we know this team is sick. We know how good they are, and you can never ever count them out.
Team Liquid was the biggest contender to FaZe Clan in PCS2 Europe. They were second, and they also won DreamHack recently, but then they were kind of struggling in PCS3 Europe group stage. What do you think?
So I think Team Liquid is, kind of the joke is that they're either really good or not very good, but I expect them to really kind of do their homework and come back into PCS3 Europe as a strong contender for the title.
So Digital Athletics, they were third in group stage. What do you think about this underdogs? They came all the way from the open qualifiers.
I have to admit, I love DA. I think they're really, really fun to watch. They're a wild card in Europe. They play like nobody else does in Europe. They set up rotation traps. They just send it on stuff that most teams would never even dream of trying to do. So they're absolutely a joy to watch. And if they win it, I will be one of the loudest cheerers out there for them.
One team I would like to highlight from Europe is Bystanders. They didn't rank high on PCS2 Europe or PCS3 Europe group stage, but I remember the 15 kill chicken dinner they had on day 4 of PCS2 Europe. It was clutch, and I was really impressed with the performance of Beanie leading the team. And I heard that he changes setting every 3 hours. It's insane.
That's actually insane. I mean, I can't imagine a professional player being able to maintain a high level of play like he does doing that. That's really crazy. I'm really impressed with them in general. And there's so many good teams in Europe. It makes it so hard to pick for this region. It's such a deep region. I mean, you got teams like TSM, Redline. It's just crazy how many good teams there are. So it's really hard to even say there's like a dark horse there.
Yeah, so it has been anyone's game for a whole year. Let's see who wins the last championship. Pick'em Challenge is back with PCS3. As always, we have 2 types of games. The main game is to predict the winner. You simply predict the winner for all 4 regions, and if you get right, you can get 100,000 EPs each. To cast a vote here, you need a voting coupon, And you can get up to 14 voting coupons by purchasing PCS3 items.
You can also get a free coupon if you tune in to the live broadcast. Same as it always is, guys. We've got the codes that are gonna come up on the screen. First come, first serve, so you gotta be quick on the draw with that, and you can use that free coupon then for the main voting. We also have a free game again with a team face-off. It's weighted voting, same as last time. So if you pick the underdog, you're gonna get more EP than you would if you pick the more favored team in terms of who is picking those teams.
There are ways to collect EPs by watching live streams. First is live quizzes. The live quizzes will pop up during the live broadcasting in PUBG Esports global Twitch channels, and you can get EPs when you get right.
Yeah, exactly, and we're making it rain again, guys. Twitch drops are back, so you just gotta tune in. Make sure you get those accounts linked. You get your PUBG account linked to your Twitch account, and this time, even better, our console players are available to get drops as well. So if you're on Stadia, Xbox, or PlayStation, you can now qualify for the drops.
For PCS3, we have added summary page to the esports tab. You can see the whole voting status and claim the reward at once here. And here are the teams that we've picked for PCS3. PUBG Continental Series 3 is right around the corner. It's the last PUBG Esports global event in 2020, so don't miss it and check out which teams will win the last championship.
Yeah, you guys really don't want to miss this. Make sure you tune in. November 5th, we're kicking things off with Asia. It's going to be incredible. There's so much on the line in these tournaments.
We'll be back with more interesting content related to PUBG Esports and PUBG Continental Series, so stay tuned. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello PUBG Esports fans. PUBG Continental Series 3, our very last global PUBG Esports event for 2020, kicks off on November 5th, and like its predecessors will feature a pick'em challenge full of hot new rewards. This pick'em challenge begins on October 28th for PC, or the 29th for console players, and lasts for 3 weeks, closing on November 19th, right before the final week's match begins. During this time, you can check out real-time tournament standings, information on participating teams, and player stats in the Esports tab in-game. You can also get some information on how teams performed from regional qualifiers, and even which players to put your eyes on. So get the information you need here and increase your chance to win. As before, the challenge has 2 events, Pick the Winner and Team Face-Off. Pick the Winner lets you predict the overall winners from each region. Placing a vote here requires a voting coupon, and you may only vote for each team once. Successful predictions will earn you 100,000 EP per region, for a maximum possible 400,000 EP and bragging rights if you manage to guess them all. Voting coupons can once again be obtained by purchasing PCS3 items, up to a maximum of 14 coupons. You can also get a free coupon by watching PCS3 live streams, which we'll get into in a moment. As always, your purchases directly support our great teams, with 25% of PCS3 item profits distributed to teams across the 4 regions. Profits will be split between supplementing the overall prize pool and being distributed equally among participating teams. Show your team spirit and increase your chances to win by picking up the new PCS3 gear. Our second game is Team Face-Off, a free way for you to earn EP by picking the winner between 2 rival teams. You can make a pick for each face-off without any coupons or purchase necessary. EP prizes here are once again weighted based on how many votes each team has gotten. Voting for the underdog may be risky, but it also might just earn you up to 7,600 EP if your team claims victory. We've added a small quality of life update this time around as well, letting you see how many voting coupons you have and which teams you voted for in the event summary page. You can now also claim all your rewards at once, making life a bit easier when you win big. Want to earn your free voting coupon and some EP? Pay close attention during PCS3 live streams. If you see a code pop up, enter it in-game quickly. Doing so will earn you your one free voting coupon for the tournament. Easy, right? Well, as long as you're faster than everyone else. You can also add some additional EP to your wallet by watching for Twitch drops and quizzes. Twitch drops are now available on both console and Steam accounts. To participate, make sure your platform, Twitch, and PUBG accounts are all linked, and watch PCS3 on Twitch. You can get started easily by visiting accounts.pubg.com and logging in or creating your PUBG account if you haven't already. From here, you'll have easy access to link your accounts. Once linked, you can earn up to 30,000 EP just by spending time watching the PCS3 action live on twitch.tv/PUBG. Finally, just like PCS2, random quizzes will sometimes appear during the PCS3 broadcast on the PUBG Global Esports Twitch channel. Answer some questions right, and you'll get some EP. Now that you've earned a ton of EP, you can purchase your various PCS3 exclusive items from the esports shop. You can claim your earned rewards starting November 24th and can spend EP in the esports shop until December 9th. PCS3 is starting up soon, so now's a great time to do some research and plan out your strategy. All 4 PUBG regions are participating, and the more you watch, the better your odds of scoring unique skins for your own matches. We know it's been a tough year for many, but you've helped make 2020 a great year for PUBG Esports, and we're excited to close it out with our best tournament yet. PUBG Esports, PCS3, and the Pick'em Challenge. Get in on the action today.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to day number 2 of PCS3 APAC. We have returned after just one night. That's right, back-to-back nights, which means very quickly, Jordan, we can get towards the action a little bit sooner than we did in the previous seasons, where usually we'd have a night off in between. This time, though, there is no night off, which hopefully means that the teams are roaring and ready to go.
Yeah, I do like that as well. It gives you a bit of consistency over the first couple of days. Then, you have a bit of time to recuperate, figure out what issues you might have had going into the following week, and the same obviously going into week 3 as well. So I like that. There's a bit of consistency, but there's also a bit of time to play with there as well. So that's good for, a lot of teams that have probably started off this season well. Miramar, Fury, Angel Alliance, those are the top 3 at the moment, and they're probably all feeling quite good coming into today.
Yeah, exactly right. Let's sort of dissect and get into everything. For those who potentially missed yesterday's matches, we had some very wild games. I would very much suggest going back and watching a couple of those. We had the Smoke Fiesta on Miramar. We had the Circle down on Sosnovka Island. Just crazy. And Fury ended up finding a chicken dinner for the first time since PCS1. A crazy amount of time between drinks for them. Here's our total leaderboard, though. Of course, after 4 matches from yesterday, this is where everything currently lays. It's Miramar United Esports in first place, 40 points. Fury just behind them by 1. Angel Alliance, the surprise packet from the Philippines, they have been amazing to watch. And LG Divine, of course, our winners from PCS2, right up there. And boy, did they start really well in Miramar.
They certainly did. It is a bit surprising even to see Divine down in 4th after the start that they actually had. You see it there, 2 wins, 20 placement points. That's actually the only placement points they were able to get over the course of the night. So Erangel was pretty rough for Divine. They sort of let the ball drop a little bit. Otherwise, they could have been off to a fantastic start had they been able to, not even necessarily follow on what they did there on Miramar, but even do half as well as they did there. They would have been easily at the top of the standings. So they missed out a little bit, but they're not too far away from the top dogs. Only 3 points behind. Yes, it could have been better, but realistically speaking, early days, plenty of work to do for all these teams. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I think we've got to make sure that we've only played 4 games. There's 24 in total. There's a lot of games still to be played. In saying that, though, a bit of a discussion we had off air before we got onto the show when we were sort of looking at the leaderboard, and one of the topics I sort of brought up was where was our eventual PCS winner after 8 games, which is about a third of the way through the season. Obviously, some previous seasons, we did actually only have the 20 games played, so it was even closer. But typically, after 8 games, whoever was in first place did in fact go on and win PCS APAC. So it does give it a slight indicator. It's not 100% science, but it gives us a bit of a clue. What this also means is for the teams down the bottom, and I know we don't have the leaderboard up anymore, but we've got Battle Arena Elites, Ferox, Purple Mood, and Unicorn. They're in the bottom 4 at the moment, and those 3 in the bottom still on only 4, 3, and 1 points respectively. They need to pick up the pace in these next 4 games. It's paramount. They've got no other option. Otherwise, they can probably say their chances of winning PCS3 APAC will be slim to none.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, we've got some point sponges towards the top end. Like the top 4 are already starting to build a bit of a lead. Then you go into the middle of the pack. And I think even if you're going to talk about Bay, you probably also need to lump FTF. So make it a bottom 5 in that instance instead of a bottom 4 in that kind of a discussion, because they're only 1 point above Bay. And then beyond them is where there's that sort of significant jump up to day trade. So for those teams that are in the bottom 5 at the moment, I think they definitely need to be turning things around. If what you say is true, based on the first 8 games being a team that would then tend towards an eventual winner if they're in first place after those 8, I mean, none of these teams really seem like they've got much of an opportunity to make it into that top spot already, one would argue. But look, it is, like I said, still early days. If they come out with a cracker of a day, get a 40, maybe a 50-point day, which is pretty unrealistic. It's pretty difficult to get something like that done in only 4 games. But that's kind of what you need to be doing to get yourself up into the top of the pack. And so for teams like maybe for Bay and From the Future, 2 teams which have had better performances in the past in PCS, I might be expecting something a little bit better from them than what they showed yesterday. But for Ferox, Purple Mood, and Unicorn, we haven't really seen a whole lot from them, obviously in PCS, and certainly not in previous seasons of PCS either. So they'll probably be staying towards the bottom of the standings. Obviously, they'd be looking for a little bit more points than 4, 3, and 1 respectively. But realistically, I think for those bottom 3, we're not necessarily expecting them to make that jump quite so much as we might be from FTF or Bay. But that's not to say necessarily that FTF and Bay are going to be able to jump back on that horse as well. Both teams have had some roster changes. They both didn't look fantastic yesterday. So it's going to have to be a real turnaround for them going into today's match, Xenox. And I think, like what we were talking about coming out of the break there was that, yeah, there's a bit of consistency from day 1 and day 2 because there isn't that extra time to sort of slow things down and have a look back and stuff like that. So maybe it's going to be going into week 2 and week 3 where we really need to see something from FTF and Bay. Maybe they do have to come into day 2 with the expectations at a certain level and just sort of go from there.
Yep. We've spoken about the top, we've spoken about the bottom, and then we've got this sort of logjam in the middle of the field. From 5th to 11th, the gap is 7 points. So if you're in that pack, you're doing all right. You're not too far away from the top. And you got a bit of a gap from that proverbial bottom 5. So in terms of the teams that are in that, there's some actually really top teams. Cerberus, Sharper Esport, Day Trade, Victim Rise, Division X. It's pretty stacked middle of the pack. And the goal really for these teams, Jordan, is to look above and look at a team like Angel Alliance and Magic Esports. Those 2 teams are in the top 5 and try and dislodge them.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a very real chance that we see a lot of these teams starting to turn their fortunes around. I mean, Cerberus was one that we talked about a lot yesterday based on some of the first couple of games that we saw from them. And then again, they sort of similarly to Divine let things slip when we came into Erangel. So for me, I think the big 3 that I'm kind of keeping an eye on from that middle of the pack right now is Cerberus, Sharper, and Division X for some of the previous performances that we've seen from them in PCS 1 and 2 and in Charity Showdown as well. Magic and Hydra Gaming were sort of surprise factors for me. I didn't necessarily expect them to perform as well as they did. If they can keep that consistency up, if they can keep the race going for a top placing, then good on them, more power to them. But I think some of these more experienced teams kind of need to show their grit and their determination coming into day 2 and sort of put on some of those performances that we did sort of expect from them and to an extent kind of saw from them yesterday. It just wasn't on a consistent enough basis.
Before we get into this first game, which hopefully is not too far away, shifting the attention now to the proverbial top 3, at least the top 3 that I like to sort of coin here. Divine, Fury, Buriram, they've probably been, in fact, no, they've definitely been the best 3 teams in APAC over the course of 2020. I don't think you can really find a way to argue that. Of the 3 teams, Jordan, and this is just me asking for your opinion here, based off only the 4 games that we've seen so far and coming into tonight, but based off those 4 games, who's looked the better of the 3 for you?
Well, I guess it's not really too much of a surprise if I was to say Buriram. Yeah, they are at the top of the standings, not by a long way. But I think the thing for me is that Fury and Divine both had 2 pretty bad games, right? They had 2 really good games. I'll give them that. 2 first places for Divine, a second and a first for Fury. But they had 2 pretty bad games. Buriram, on the other hand, they had 3 really consistent games. They did have 1 pretty rough game, but again, 1 out of 4 ain't so bad. 2 out of 4, you're starting to get to a point where it's like, okay, 50% of the games looking a little bit rough. I will give credit to Fury in that they seem to have turned their performances around. They seem to have come back from what was a bad start. And I think there is a little bit of, something to be said with regard to that. But just the way that Buriram was sort of roaming around, fragging people out, even in game 1, they only placed 7th, but they got 10 kills there. Then they had a 14-kill win. And you see those kinds of numbers being put up on a consistent basis by a team, and you start to think, okay, they're going to be a bit of a handful to deal with. Whereas on the other hand, for Divine, their wins were 5-6 kills. They got 6 kills in round 3 as well. It's not like they're going out and sort of blitzing away the competition or anything like that. And I know that's kind of a surface level thing, saying, oh, they got more kills, therefore they look better. But I think it's just the way that they looked. It's kind of like the eye test in some of these fights, that when you see them get into an engagement and you just look at that and you say they're going to win it, there's no question about that. And then they go on to win it without losing a player, or maybe they only lose 1 player or something like that. I think it's Buriram for me that, based on the eye test, are looking the best of the bunch. And you even have to consider, like for Fury in their second place, it was 2 players getting into a good spot, getting a bit of a circle feed and sort of making the best of a bad situation. Whereas for Buriram, it's felt like when they've been in control, they've stayed in control and they've been able to sort of dictate things from there. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Buriram can do. Obviously, it's no slight for Fury and for Divine either. Both of those 2 teams had a really, really solid performance as well. So I think that they can continue what they did yesterday. I'm looking for a really, really big battle for that top 3 at the moment. And if Angel Alliance is going to stick around as well, then that's even better. We've got a battle for first place between 4 teams right now, and that's really, really scintillating viewing going into game 1 of day 2.
Well, that's the pre-show done and dusted, completed, wrapped up. We head over to Miramar now, as you said, for our first match of the night now for day 2 of PCS3 APAC. It's match 5 in total. And really, by the end of tonight, at its conclusion, we will be a third of the way through already. It's quick. It's very, very quick. And it just sort of highlights that each match is just so important in the grand scheme of things. You tell Fury, really, for PCS2, I remember them saying how they did this and that wrong in the last match. But I said to them, technically every match you could have got an extra point or 2. And obviously, Divine could have got an extra point or 2. So you've got to make use of the rounds that you've got in these early games, and that's what it's all about. And I said it at the very beginning of the pre-show, Jordan. It's about the start that you can have over the first 8 games.
Well, can we just touch on that even then? There was a graphic as you were talking. I don't know how many people really were looking too deep into that one, but for Fury yesterday, they only got 4 points on Miramar. They were 11th place on the Miramar standings, and then they take 2nd place overall. So there is a very obvious fix to what happened for them yesterday. It's just perform a little bit better on Miramar. Maybe get a bit of circle luck. Maybe have a little bit of a better rotation here or there. It's unbelievable that they would only get another 4 points here on Miramar. The expectation will definitely be that they can turn that around. And then again, they only have to go and do half as much as what they did on Erangel to kind of keep up the pace that they set from day 1. So I think that's a good sign for them. They've obviously left a little bit in the tank when it comes to Miramar. And I think it's pretty obvious that, they'll come into today expecting to do better than what they did there. For teams like Buriram, who were a bit more of a 50-50 split, it's kind of harder to say, because you're trying to match what you were able to do yesterday in instead of coming into this one with a bit of a fresh mindset saying, look, as long as we get more than 4 points out of Miramar, we're probably pretty happy compared to what happened yesterday.
Well, we have just seen Purple Mood landing in Los Leonas, but it's such a large city. I don't think much will come from it. If anything happens, of course, we'll jump back over, but I think for the most part, Fury will loot the west side and Purple Mood will loot the east side of Los Leonas, and I don't think we'll see any engagements there. LG Divine, though, on Miramar, well, they were the polar opposite of Fury. They were the kings of Miramar yesterday, and it's a large reason why they are in 4th place on 37 points at the moment. 15.5 average points, averaging just the 5.5 kills. The way they were basically playing Miramar was they weren't getting into early conflicts, which kept their utility high, kept their players alive, and they got good position. Then, at about the 22, 23-minute mark, that's when they would push out, look for those kills, get those third parties, sweep around, and basically get those wins off the back of just sort of cleaning up the other teams that were wounded and that didn't have the utility to take those fights. So very clinical from LG Divine on day number 1's Miramar, and would have to say that they'll just be looking to sort of replicate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very much the goal for them. 31 points coming from Miramar for LG Divine yesterday out of their total 37. It's going to be Erangel where we get a bit of an understanding maybe of what they can bring to the table there today, because we didn't really get a very good look at them yesterday on that map. A team that was consistent across the board, though, was Buriram. They had about 19 points, I think, out of Miramar, and as a result, 21 on Erangel. So they were looking good on both of the two maps, and that's kind of another one of the reasons where I feel like they've been the most consistent team so far in the competition. They've been doing a pretty damn good job, across the board, and they've got a very, very strong roster here. You see Jowman in there. He's actually not playing at the moment for Buriram. They've still got the same roster that we saw from previous seasons, but he's definitely a solid player. If they do need to bring in a sub, I can think of no one better really than Jowman, who back in like PCS1 when Q Confirm went on that absolute rampage was just a standout player. He was probably the standout player for the roster. I think it was Jowman and Gems, but for me, Jowman was the one that really sort of shined the brightest. And to see him in this Buriram roster really only bolsters them. It's just it's kind of sad, right, that PUBG isn't a 5-man game, because I think he would slot right in and make this one of the best teams, if not the best team, within the APAC region, as they are definitely up there in that discussion. And with the addition of Jowman, I can only imagine that they'll go from strength to strength.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. You mentioned that dynamic duo of Gems and Jowman. From my knowledge, I think Gems actually just missed out on returning to PCS in 6th place in the PUBG Thailand Master Series for a tackle round, which was formerly Q Confirmed. So it's a bit of a shame that we actually never really got to see Q Confirm after that first PCS come back into the PUBG Continental Series. We'll see whether or not Jowman makes an appearance at some point. I even said it to you before. I don't know who he replaces really out of that team. So look, a vital sub if needed as we continue to watch these teams rotating throughout Miramar here for phase number 1. A pretty normal sort of circle, up a bit north towards San Martin, La Cobb, El Pozo, the sort of triangle here. And a lot of teams already very early on getting those positions. It's so paramount, it's so important on Miramar to get these early positions. If you're playing edge and you're playing in late, you're going to be spotted from teams in the center with a bit of elevation. Makes it so difficult to get in. Which is probably why, Jordan, we see a team like Buriram United actually perform better on Erangel, simply because they are a team that likes to play a bit more on the edge.
Yeah, they definitely do. They're one of the better edge teams that we see in PCS APAC. So a team that kind of likes to frag out in the middle stages of the game. You'll see that quite a lot. And we even did get to see a bit of it yesterday on Miramar in that first game. I think they placed something like 7th or 8th, and they had about 10 or 11 kills in that performance. And you just would have thought, like, if they keep rolling through all of these teams, how big can they make this game? It was just a rather unfortunate circle shift that moved quite well away from them, that forced them, to make a bit of a rough rotation through like 2 or 3 teams, and it was just never going to happen. But even in that rotation, they got a few frags. And speaking of a few, Moy has picked up Subang. He's the first player that will drop in day 2 of PCS3 APAC, and it's going to be a point over to those boys. So good start for Victim Rise, as they're sitting, in the middle of the pack, and if they have a good day here, could definitely see themselves at least looking to catch the leaders at the end of day 2.
Battle Arena Elites have got a lot of work to do. Obviously, down the bottom at the moment, just the 11 points. They did kind of rectify things slightly on Erangel. It was, of course, Miramar where they the most. It's such a strong roster, and obviously it's been spoken about the transition between Jukesy and Flood and the swap with Fury, but Jukesy is a very valuable player, still a great player. And for a team that was only 7 points away from, I think, the top 3 in PCS2, and they were fighting the whole way through, it's not been a good start, but I definitely think that they can turn it around pretty quickly on. Here's, of course, the circle. Now, we've still got a minute and a half remaining, but you can already see, Jordan, that's what I was saying about a minute ago, how many teams were already inside at this circle and pretty much towards the center. Not much has necessarily changed here. The teams on the outer edge still coming in very late. Buryram's around the south side of Hacienda, so they're not going to go too far in. There are some major cities still in play here, though, and if those cities do stay in towards the later stages, teams can, of course, crash into those cities if need be. But for the most part, you're looking for high elevation with cover around that elevation so that if you are spotted, you can kind of fall back to like a ditch or a little bowl, kind of like where Cerberus are at right now.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because all the teams at the moment are sort of taking real estate in the bottom 50% of the circle. No one's interested up towards the north near Larkob, anywhere like that. So if we do get a hard northern shift, this is going to be another mass rotation. Most of the teams banking on it coming back down further toward the south, down near San Martin, down near Power Grid, which is not a huge surprise. That's kind of one of the hot spots on Miramar where the circle does tend to shrink towards a little bit more often than not, whereas up towards Larkob, you really do need to have that hard northern shift a couple of times. So it's not a huge surprise to see these teams kind of congregating in a similar position, but I don't know how Edie's got himself into this kind of a spot. He doesn't have a vehicle by the looks of things, and he's sort of out in no man's land on his own. It's not going to be a fun game for him if he gets stuck here. Speaking of the circle shift, by the way, we have actually ended up going north, and that's what I was talking about. With all these teams down in the bottom 50, probably 60%, I'll give it, of the circle, all now having to come up north, going to have to go through each other, past each other. It's only those teams like Division X Gaming that are feeling happy, but Edie spoke about him, and for Unicorns, I mean, it hasn't gotten much better from day one into day two by the looks of things, because that's a rough one to lose. It's unfortunate losing a player that early, but I suppose it is what it is. It's going to be the least of their problems, those Xenox, because they are one of the teams that's going to have to make a very, very big rotation. In fact, one of the teams that has to make the biggest rotation, because they were one of the southernmost teams. Everyone has to make a rotation. Every single team is going to have to get moving. Maybe one or two might be able to stay put if they are fine with where they were based off of Phase 1, which about 90% of the server certainly was not fine for Phase 1. The whole landscape has now changed, basically, though. El Pozo, San Martin, that's 2 cities taken out of Phase 1 here for Phase number 2. Larkob's in, like you said. And that is now, as I said, going to change the landscape. You've got the crater there as well. That's going to be a massive place of conflict later on. Maybe not so much for Phase 2 if you are a little bit wary of going there early, because obviously high elevation, a lot of teams alive can then all see you at once. Victim Rise, for the time being, I'm pretty happy to just stay and hang out around the south side of this Phase 2 circle. But for the most part, just looking at my map, I can see so many teams have shifted more north towards Larkov, Crater Fields. There's a nice heavy split here as well from Division X Gaming, occupying a large portion center of this circle. Victim Rise still on the move, and Magic Esports are close by. There are a few teams that still need to make their way in. Cerberus at Power Grid, not inside of the circle. Unicorn, Day Trade now making their way from El Pozo. Buram, we know they like to play edge. Water Treatment's where they are at currently. They still need to go in a little bit further, though, as Tong K, who was one of the standout players from day number 1, a couple of 3Ks, and really a massive reason why Magic Esports are in the top 5 at the moment. Trying his chances there, not going to be too successful, but a good position for Magic Esports. Fury close by to them, and Victim Rise now continue their move forward from the south portion of the circle. Yeah, this is definitely a tough circle to call, isn't it? Because if you go all the way up to Larkob, then if it comes back to the south, you've got all that hilly terrain that you have to negotiate, and yeah, by virtue of it being Miramar, there is going to be hilly terrain pretty much everywhere. It's just how the map is. It's actually one of the more difficult parts of the map, I think, to play up towards Larkob. So that's why most of the teams are sort of sitting around toward the center, staying around towards the crater. Coming off of the hills is going to be easier than coming onto the hills, and so they're banking on it staying a little bit more south again. Yeah, we're going to have to see a very, very hard northern shift if it's to go over La Cabrera. But it is one of the more interesting, actually, final circles I find on Miramar is when it does actually go down towards La Cabrera, and it's sort of like half and half between the town and the hill above it. And that's where we get some pretty interesting final gameplay with teams sort of shooting off the hill and teams sort of trying to hide inside of the town. Two sort of different styles of gameplay. Either way, Victim Rise finding themselves in the kill feed again, but this time for the wrong reasons. So too is Fury, and perhaps their woes on Miramar continue. Now, in fairness, this hasn't been a kind circle shift for them, but I doubt it's going to get any kind of running into Buriram and losing Flood early on in the piece is not going to be good news for them.
Oh, here we go. Tonight, though, with the nice early knockdown onto Evil Patrick. Angel Alliance had a great day one. Maybe not the start to day two they would like. Sharper Esports, while it's in their name, they are quite sharp. They got some good fraggers on this roster. Mad Dog's still alive, who has definitely been the standout for Angel Alliance. Here in the creative fields, though, the circle keeps these guys in for phase 3, so they've got time. This is not a rush. Angel Alliance do not have to worry too much in terms of moving away from the blue. They're just in barely, as you can see on the minimap for phase 3, which has gone right onto Crater. Larkob's out, basically. And speaking of out, Tom K in the kill feed has just been taken out by Samoy. That's a big loss for Magic Esports. Mad Dog just spraying on the edge of that smoke as Sonoy was making the run in front of the crate. Is able to get by successfully. Not a surprise to see Mad Dog being the initiator here for Angel Alliance, but they're playing this smart, Jordan. They're not getting too involved. They lost one, okay, but that doesn't mean they have to go running around looking for that revenge kill. Hold your position. You got the shed. You're in the circle. Hold your ground. Look for information.
Yeah, you don't want to be getting too involved in a fight here either, particularly if they're aware of the fact that Ferox has a player behind them somewhere, or a couple of players behind them that will inevitably have to come in, although I'll expect them to rotate a bit further north and sort of wrap around the crater as opposed to going straight into the center. Sharper Esport also not really the kind of team that you want to be taking on at this point. Sure, they're sitting in 9th place. It doesn't look all that threatening, but knowing that the majority of that roster is the team that comprised Golden Cat back in the day, we've seen some solid stuff from them, even in PCS kind of competitions. And so they are a solid team. And this is what I'm talking about, the Larkob kind of 50-50 setup. It's not really a 50-50. The circle's definitely moving away from Larkob, but there's enough of it in that it gives room for at least one, maybe two teams, depending on how much real estate is taken up here by day trade, to find some cover there in Larkob area. But the issue is going to be they're going to have to find their way out of it. And that's what I always like about these kinds of northern circles is when teams have to push out of Larkob area, they really have to fight their way out. And for day trade, I'm imagining it's going to be no different.
Crater's going to be a big place of conflict, though. I said it before, and I'm going to repeat it here, because now that we're into phase 3, heading to phase 4, it's such a massive position to hold. Victim Rise currently with that location. They'll have that high ground. They can see a lot of teams. The downside to it, of course, is that since it's very early on, so many teams can then look up towards them, get a few knocks, put pressure on, but it's so difficult to sort of drive up to their location and sort of, I guess, breach them by foot, right? 10 seconds away from phase number 4, and you can see we've got it's about 4 or 5 teams now around the crater fields. No one inside of it for good reason. If you go into that crater, it is so difficult to make your way out of it. Ooh. And that is another shifting circle. This one going to the north. It keeps half of crater in. The good half, if you're Division X and Victim Rise, they don't necessarily have to move. It doesn't bode well, though, for a team like Fury, Cerberus, Sharper, Magic all need to move. Namsy and Divine now getting breached. Just Moments is knocked. So is Los Santos. Levi is going to be flushed immediately after being knocked here. So LG Divine not going to get out without a scratch. They're wounded. Division X are watching as well from the hill. This is a messy fight. Namsy doesn't have a frag grenade, does throw in the stun grenade. And now we switch over to a second fight, Jordan. It's Sophia taking out Edie. This is not a good look for the teams in the top 4 right now. LG, Divine, and Buriram.
Yeah, it's all over the place, isn't it? Bay not getting out of there unscathed either, though. They lose Sophia. So it's all over the place right now, isn't it? Bay fighting, LG Divine fighting, Buriram, Purple Mood. Everyone's trying to get involved in really taking a position. I think that's what this is all about, locking down a position at the moment, because there isn't that much real estate now that circle shift has gone so hard to the northeast. Bay will get themselves another point here when Loki's confirms the kill onto Edie, but in that meanwhile, the res has come across. So 2 Buriram players up for the moment. Both of them sitting inside the smoke. You can just see inside of the building, but
From the futures here.
yeah, from the futures hanging around as well. So surely only one out of these 3 teams can get out of this one alive. And speaking about that, LG Divine seem to have won their battle against Purple Mood, losing only the 1 player. Probably not too bad of a shout for them. If you're getting breached by a full team of 4 and you only lose 1, I think you can take that most days of the week.
Yeah, and it's a good win for LG Divine, not just for the fact they got the kills, they kept 3 alive, but their position inside of this circle, they've got a nice compound. At worst, another team now has to breach them. They're ready for it. They know the angles that they need to hold. It's a good look right now for LG Divine, who creep up into the top 2, 41 points. Obviously, long time until really the leaderboard has much of a significance, but it's always nice to sort of look at. Now, Bay have got 3 up here, as Jukesy does make his way over to help out Neferhor and Loki's, as I mentioned before, from the future, also at this compound with Buriram United, who have gotten off once again, just like day one, off to a slow start here on Miramar. They do their best work on Erangel as Kim Siver on the board for Sharper Esports, still kill, taking out Elgin bots of Angel Alliance, who are now also down to 2 players. From the future, though, are going to move. They're going to move to that compound just very slightly to the south of the previous compound we were at. And just as we left the compound, Jordan, as it usually goes, Buriram have been wiped out.
Yeah, that's a better start for Bay than what they had yesterday. So Miramar turning around for them. Doesn't seem to be turning around so nicely for Fury, though. They've got another player knocked down, although the res is going to be completed by Insight. They are just slugging it away on the edge of the circle, trying to keep their heads down for the moment. Angel Alliance don't seem like they're going to be able to put another performance like they did yesterday on the board in game 1 at least of day 2, down to just Nan and not a single kill this time. So things haven't gone their way, but they do have a fairly sizable amount of points already on the board. It's not the end of the world for them, especially considering Buriram has been knocked out early. Lots of teams are going to be looking to close that gap now.
Oh, Jordan, look at the map. The feed here for LG Divine. It does keep Division X Gaming in, who of course will have that high ground position too. So in fact, I think they're almost maybe even in a slightly better position. Depending on how you want to look at it, Division X are going to be more likely to find kills while still having a good position in the circle. LG Divine's ability to get kills, I'm a little bit suspect on here. So a great spot. They're definitely going to get some placement points. And considering Buriram's early departure, I think LG Divine will take first place back after the conclusion of this game, barring a catastrophe. We'll see how it plays out, though. Phase 5 initiated, and apparently Gibberit is going to bleed out to Waikiki. Fury on the board here from a very tough spot. They're making it work, as Nan actually got Sweet Soul, who was knocked by Maximus. This is out to the very far west, not even inside of the current circle, and the blue's moving. So Nan is not going to be able to stay alive for much longer here. It's going to be Bryn who gets that elimination. But we need to switch our attention back over to Victim Rise and Fury, because Cow is creeping up this hill, getting closer and closer. There goes Unicorn Cyber. From the future, though, from behind, are going to get the knock on the Waikiki Cow. Insight's down as well. I think it's only 1 up at the moment for Fury.
Yeah, that'd be Ronan, who's the one alive, although he might be able to get the res onto Insight. I think they're in a shack. No, they're not. Insight was making his way up the hill. Ronan trying to do the same. Fury's done here. There is no way Ronan gets up this hill alive unless, for some reason, Victim Rise and From the Future finish each other off and completely forget about Ronan. It's not a good start to the day for Fury. A, on the other hand, as we jump over there, actually firing a few shots into the back of From the Future, so they may be bailing Victim Rise and potentially even Ronan out of a bit of trouble. I can see on the minimap, though, that Ronan has got himself into an engagement there and has finished off one of the From the Future players. There's still 3 remaining, though, and now they know exactly where he is. He, like I said, surely cannot get out of this hole in one piece.
No, certainly can't. 4 kills, though, for Battle Arena Elites. Despite the fact that they lost Sophia so early on, they've been able to at least manage a few kills. They're inside of the circle. They can make something work here in this first game of the night, and that's exactly what they really needed here. The recipe for success is there for them now in this game to get back into that logjam in the middle of the pack on the leaderboard. Mip and Zuzu going to be eliminated by Samoy. Victim Rise continue their rise up the leaderboard. They're going to go up into 5th place now. Jukesy having to just fall away from Umama and From the Future close by. And all of a sudden, this Crater Hill has become a hot spot. Next, Ferox, Sharper Esports, Magic and Victim Rise all trying to find a place on top of it. It's phase 6. It's LG Divine.
Yeah, Ronan gets eliminated by GenFoss. It was really a matter of time for him. Can't stick around for a placement point, at least for Fury. So they're out in 11th, then FTF out in 10th, and I think we're down to 9 teams now. So it's very quickly starting to fall by the wayside for quite a few. Bay putting that pressure on to From the Future has really ruined their game. It looked like they were going to be able to get a few kills on the board, but just shot in the back by the Bay fellas, and now they're out of it. So turning our attention back to Victim Rise, who was the team that was in an engagement earlier on with From the Future, and they are now trying to get past Magic. It's just such a rough circle for so many teams. It's like this 50-50. You're either up on top of the crater or you're at the bottom. And at the moment, it seems like if you're at the bottom, you're actually in a better spot. Where traditional thinking would say that high ground is better. Definitely not the case at the moment.
Well, the bottom's got that beautiful compound of safety right there for LG Divine. In the end, who hasn't been breached for a little while now, so they've been sitting quite pretty. Day Trade and Hydra Gaming just on the cliff face here on Crater, going toe-to-toe. Venotic has been knocked down. Not good signs for Day Trade, who have only got the 1 kill so far. With Ferox's elimination, though, we're down to just 7 teams, 20 alive. And it's another bloodbath here, similar to day number 1. 2-hand Robo going to be knocked and flushed by Fergus. 4 kills for Division X, and they've still got 4 alive here. They're winning their fights, they're cleaning up, and they're keeping their players alive. And they're also now heading upwards on the leaderboard and into the top 7. And they've got this high ground against Flash, against Morins, against Day Trade Gaming. They send them packing. 6 kills now for Division X Gaming. And all 4 players still alive. There's 1 down, but they'll get the revive.
Got the high ground. Well, so does Magic, and that hasn't helped them out too much. Nice shots through there from Nefahor and Lokis. And that's the end of Sulaby. So Magic down to just 2 remaining players. Bay, I have enjoyed watching Bay actually so far in this game. They've been aggressive when the opportunity presented itself. They've slowed down their gameplay when they could have been put under pressure. And once again, they're sensing the blood in the water. They know that they have the numbers advantage now over Magic with that kill that they've just gotten. And this is their opportunity to take some pretty important positioning. Wow, great shots. Again from Nefahor. The headshot from Jukesy as well to finish off. Alex was the finishing blow. So that is going to be Bay into the top 4 and definitely turning around their games from day 1 into day 2. In fact, I think they've like doubled or even tripled their points in just 1 game so far. Doubled. They've doubled.
Tremendous start. Yeah, they certainly have. They've even more than doubled their points. They had 11 for all of day 1. They've got 13 points here in the first game of the night. Gets them to 24, and they are within striking distance to those teams directly above them. A good little sort of season kickstarter already for Bay in this game, and they can do more. They're not done yet, but this is where it gets a little bit more tricky. Division X have got 3. Divine have also got 3, so it's a 3 versus 3 versus 3. And everyone's got a pretty decent amount of space here, but Bay are not in the circle. Neither is Division X. And Jordan, the only way that these 2 teams get into the circle is by putting themselves into the sightlines of LG Divine. Lokis is knocked from long K, from a long way. I don't sense Bay are going to get out of this pickle.
No, definitely doesn't seem to be an easy situation for them, because if they go over one side of the ridge, they've got to deal with LG Divine. If they go over the other side, they have to deal with Division X, and Division X are also sensing the opportunity and pushing up, taking advantage of it. IQ 500, he did drop to Jukesy, but it's not going to matter in the end. Numbers are there for Division X Gaming, but Xenox, we might actually be headed to the 100% win rate for LG Divine. 3 from 3 on Miramar is what they'd be able to get if they won this game. They won both Miramars yesterday in day 1 of PCS3, and they're looking to put 3 on the trot together. And based on their run on Erangel, they kind of need it.
Yeah. I mean, they picked up 6 points from their 2 Erangel games yesterday, and it was 31 from their 2 Miramar games. A massive difference between the 2 maps for LG Divine. They retake first place for now, unless Division X can find the win here, in which case, what a way to start day number 2 for Division X Gaming. And I feel very happy that we spoke about them in the pre-show, Jordan. You especially mentioned them as one of the teams from that logjam in the middle of the pack that's certainly capable of getting into that top 5. At the moment, they're in the top 2, but look, from here, and as you can already see, it's turning into a slaughter. There was not much room for Division X to get down that hill. It's a 100% win rate on Miramar for LG Divine. 3 from 3. They had the first 2 games of Miramar yesterday, and they take match number 1 tonight on Miramar, the Kings of Miramar.
They certainly are. I gotta say, that was fairly reminiscent of the games that they had yesterday on Miramar, though, where they got themselves a good center position, got a couple of circle rotations that went in their way, and just sort of fragged out towards the end of the game. They didn't put in any of the hard yards in the middle stages, similar to someone like, for example, Division X or Bay. Those 2 teams really having to fight for their position, fight for their placement for their 2nd or 3rd, whereas Divine, in their compound, they were quite happy to just let everyone finish themselves, each other off and come away with a 6-kill win. It's their 2nd 6-kill win, and it's also their 3rd win, as you've mentioned already, on Miramar. So good performances from them on the map, but again, still waiting to see a little bit more from them when we do get on to Erangel and whether or not they can continue this trajectory on Miramar. It's just something about this map for Divine, isn't it? I think even if we were to go back into PCS2, which they won, I remember them being quite good on Miramar as well, and I'm having a quick look back at some of the results to see if I'm correct or if I'm just sort of having some sort of bias or cognitive bias or something like that. I'm finding a couple of wins on Miramar there, so it's not like it's a terrible map for them at all. I think actually they pick up quite a lot of their points there.
Yeah, the history shows it, Jordan. You don't have to go back and have a look. It's there that they are a very strong Miramar team, and while look, history is history, the current news is that they are still very dominant on Miramar, and that's what matters more than history, is how you perform on it now. Because, we look at a team like Fury that we've spoken about as, in the past, being a very strong team on Miramar, and that's not the case, apparently, so far for PCS3, where all of their work has been on Erangel. So, look, at the end of the day, what I will say is, when we look back to PCS2 APAC, what set LG Divine apart was the fact they could do it on both maps. They did it on Miramar, and they did it on Erangel. Right now for PCS3, they've certainly brought it on Miramar. They will need to bring it on Erangel, and if they can do that, I don't know if I see really anyone beating them. I know it's early days. We've only played 5 games, but we only played 24 in total. There's not that many more to go. And in terms of that eye test that you said in the pre-show, they passed it again here. It's not always about flashiness and getting 15 kills and being a dominant force. Sometimes it's just about doing the smart things. Good positioning. They won the breach. They did have to deal with 1 breach. They won that convincingly. They had a good position. Did they get a bit of circle luck? Yeah, they did. But over the course of 24 games, every team is going to get some circle luck at some point, and it's just how you make the most of it, and LG Divine have done just that. Division X, though, I guess we should also touch on them. Great performance, 17 points. They picked up 2nd place with those 11 kills. That gets them all the way up into 2nd place, tied with Miramar. So they've gone from that logjam now right up into the top 3, and Bay, a massive turnaround, doubling their points from all of day 1.
Yeah, they did really well, didn't they? I think Bay was a team that we expected to see more from on day 1, and it's nice to see them showing up here on day 2. 3rd place, 8 kills, 13 points. Yeah, a little bit more than double is what they were able to put on the board from their day 1 performance. It's actually jumped them up a little bit, up to 12th. It kind of keeps them in that discussion where it felt like they might be falling away from things. The teams that did largely miss out, though, FTF, Ferox, Purple Mood, Unicorn, Cyberdanak, they are still in that same position. They're still in that bottom 4. And remember, in the pre-show, we were talking about it being a bottom 5. Now I think it becomes a bottom 4 with that result that Battle Arena Elites were able to pick up. And they sort of put themselves back into that middle of the pack discussion, albeit at the bottom of the middle of the pack. But, it's better than being in the bottom 5, even though they are still technically in the bottom 5.
I quickly pose this question to you, though, as we look at the total leaderboard. The kills, 23 for LG Divine. If you were to sort of shuffle those kills from top to bottom, LG Divine would be about 6th and 7th. Is that a concern?
Well, I think it is not necessarily a concern so much, but it is something to kind of keep note of, because, like I said, they have had a couple of circle feeds on Miramar. They've had some games that have, I think, been made a little bit easier for them. They haven't necessarily had to really work super hard. It's the case of getting into a compound early on in the piece, you know, getting a couple of circles and finishing it off. And I mean, you got to give them credit, right?
Oh yeah.
You can only deal with the situation that's presented to you, and they've won all 3 of the games on Miramar, so I don't want to take anything away from them. But we have yet to see them do something similar to what Buriram did, or what Cerberus has done, or what Fury did, where they really just sort of fragged out and took control of the whole game from circle 6 or 7 onwards.
We have seen them do it in the past, though, so we know it's definitely in their arsenal. We'll see whether or not they bring it out at some point tonight. Regardless, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we have our second game of Miramar. Match 1 done. Match 2 coming up now very, very shortly. Of course, Miramar once again, where LG Divine reigns supreme. Jordan, they cannot be stopped, apparently.
Apparently. I am still interested to see how they're going to go if they have a less than favorable circle shift post phase 4 or 5. So, look, I'm giving them credit where it's due, definitely, but I am still hesitant to say that I think they are the best team right now, just based on those Miramar games. Because, look, you got to look back at what we spoke about a little bit earlier on, where you have to be able to do it on both maps. We have yet to see Erangel today. If they let Erangel fall like they did yesterday, opportunities there for teams like Buriram, for Fury to kind of catch up. Obviously, very, very good stuff from them on Miramar, but at a certain point, surely it's not going to continue. You know, they can't have a 100% win rate on Miramar after 4 games, Enox. You can't tell me that storyline's a thing.
I mean, we'll find out after this next game if they can get 4 in a row on Miramar. But look, the damage stats kind of tell a bit of the story, doesn't it? Of course, for LG Divine, they have been a little bit fortunate on Miramar in terms of the circles because they're not getting into these fights early on. It was Division X and it was Bay that was scrapping the most in that previous match. That's why they've got the damage. That's why they got the kills. But LG Divine got the win because they had the utility, they had the players alive, they had the position in the end. And really, at the end of the day, if you're going to get 30 points from 3 games, that's one way to do it in terms of placement points, because that's exactly what they're at right now. I think you mentioned it before that they didn't get any placement points on Erangel yesterday. So they're smack bang on 30 placement points from these first games played at the moment.
Hang on a second. What you're telling me is if they make it to a placement point, they are guaranteed to make it to first place, because so far their conversion rate from 8th place to first is 100%, right? So that's just got to continue. Either they get none or they get 10.
That's the way it's going right now. Will that stay that way? I don't think so. I think you said you don't think so either. But we're about to find out. Miramar's what they do best, apparently. And this might be where they need to get their points. If Erangel's not going to be as kind for them as it was for PCS3 APAC, and it's Miramar or nothing, then hey, if you're getting these wins on Miramar, who cares what happens on Erangel? We head into Miramar for the final time this weekend for PCS3 APAC. LG Divine, a 3-0 on Miramar. They haven't been beaten so far in PCS3 APAC. Can they continue to hold that crown as we go into the last match of Miramar for the weekend?
Well, that's a very good question. Playing path, not looking too bad for all teams. Maybe those that go all the way out to the east will be feeling a little bit more disappointed, but Impala for Para East, so not really the ideal drop locations as it is, and I don't think anyone's going to be too concerned about potentially having to alt drop over towards the west should they feel that requirement. Again, looking at the rankings on Miramar, it's really unreasonable, isn't it? LG Divine almost a full 20 points ahead of Division X Gaming after only 3 games on this map. That's what you got to think about. The context here is that, I mean, what is that? Let me do some quick maths here on stream. 47 divided by 3 is 15.6 games on average points per game coming out from LG Divine on Miramar, which is just unreasonable. Like, I always talk about 8 to 10 points being pretty good as an average. So they're almost hitting 16 points. You could literally just keep doing this on Miramar, not get a single point out of Erangel, and you might even have a good chance at taking first place this season.
But then on Erangel, their point deficit kind of brings that down, and that's why they're sitting at actually around 10 points a game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. It's like, it doesn't really matter, you know? If you keep getting 16 points a game on Miramar, you could get 0 points on Erangel, and you've still got an average of 8 points a map.
I don't think they're going to be winning every single match of Miramar, though. Without question, at some point, LG Divine are going to need to pick it up on Erangel. It could be tonight, and if it is, it's not looking good for everyone else. As we get our circle over Los Leones, La Bendita, pretty stock standard and staple circle here on Miramar, at least switching it up from match number 1, though, where we were north, we were over towards Crater, and now we come more so towards the southern region of Miramar. And well, the terrain is a bit more different towards the very south coastline compared to the north. It is not as hilly as you like to call it up north.
Yeah, I like this one a little bit because it's just a change up from what we've seen so far. We had 2 very, very hard western shift circles yesterday. Then we had a bit more of a northern shift, and now we're liable to get something in towards the center of the map, or potentially down to the south. That's going to be a little bit more comfortable for the likes of Cerberus in Picado Bay, who are in La Bendita, and Fury in Los Leones. Interestingly, there isn't the second team contesting Los Leones this time. Not that it's really much of a contest per se, but there is actually only one team looting in Los Leones, which is Fury, and that's obviously their standard drop location, has been for a very, very long time. But yeah, interesting to note that I can't remember who it was actually that was dropping in Los Leones with them, has gone for an alt drop this time.
That was Purple Mood who did drop Los Leones for match number 1. I did say though that I didn't think much would come from it. In the end, nothing did come from it. They just looted the west side, did Fury, and Purple Mood the east side. And obviously, based off this plane path, I mean, Los Leones is not going to be the place for Purple Mood this game. So, as you said, did alt drop here up to the very far north, close by to Oasis. Which, look, Los Leones is the kind of city that it's large enough that you can quite literally have 2 teams looting in there without there being really an issue. One of the benefits of as well as looting in Los Leones is when it does come to those hot drops, say the last game or the second last game of a tournament, it's a lot harder to drop directly on a team that's looting in Los Leones. It's just too large. What you kind of have to do is drop around the city and block off some of those routes out of Los Leones instead. So it's a little bit more tricky. As we look at LG Divine, they just don't know what it's like to lose on Miramar for PCS3 APAC. And yet, despite that, they're only 10 points clear of second and third. So if you had have said to me after 5 games, Jordan, that LG Divine would have 3 wins of the 5, I would have thought they would be having a massive lead.
Yeah, 30 points coming from just the wins, the placement points. So 3/5 of their total points just coming from the wins here on Miramar. It does raise some questions, doesn't it? You think about all the work that they can get done in the other aspects of the game. You know, they're not getting large amounts of frags. They're certainly below teams like Buriram and Fury, who have been heavy fraggers based on some of their games. And then even the placement points on Erangel definitely going missing. So that's the main storyline for me. I mean, LG Divine, credit, of course, for the performances on Miramar. But still questions. And of course, there's always going to be questions early in a season of PCS. So they're not the only one that has questions surrounding them. I think there's a lot even for Fury right now. Like, why is Miramar being such a struggle for them when it historically has been such a good map for them? So, you know, shoes on the other foot in some respects for other teams. Angel Alliance as well didn't really get a whole lot done in game 1 of today, where they were quite good in the first 2 games of Miramar yesterday. Interestingly enough, taking a quick peek at where they are. And they're just out to the west of Los Leones. So they've rotated in pretty early. They've got a nice 2-2 split here, hoping for a bit of a circle shift straight in towards the center, which will keep them quite safe. But that's still a way to go. A lot of teams rotating early, though, for this circle.
Rabbit X from Hydra Gaming, sitting in 8th place right now, which I think for these guys, a top 8 finish is spectacular. I mean, they haven't played in PCS for the entirety of 2020. Purple Mood's another team as well that's new to PCS, but they are having a rougher go of things. As Canaxi for Buriram just watching Magic Esports driving by, Godmeo as well with the mini. 4 times. Buriram's going to have a decent position this game, actually, towards Bendita. For a team that likes to play on the edge, I don't think they're going to play this game as much on the edge unless Phase 2 shifts more in a western direction. They may actually find themselves rather towards the center this game. We'll see how that plays out for them. Not the best driving right now from Sulabi of Magic Esports, but fortunately the distance here from Buriram and Magic Esports is quite large, and with the 4 times, and even if you had it 8 times, it's still very going to be too difficult to land those shots.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, that's something that we tend to see early on in Miramar is, you know, not a whole lot of fighting. A few picks being attempted, shots with the sniper rifles and that kind of thing. But more often than not, even if you are hitting those shots, the reses do come across. Lots of sprays on people rotating past in motorbikes so far, but nothing really substantial connecting. And it's a fairly standard, straightforward start to game 2 of Miramar. A couple of the teams still making some rotations. LG Divine have just gotten inside of the circle, but...
Well, look at up north.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. The few remaining teams not inside of the circle yet are Purple Mood, Ferox, and interestingly enough, Division X Gaming very, very far north. So they have a long one. And they will only be getting basically into the circle as the blue hits it, and we see the next. So they'll be driving for the majority of this game, which is never a fun time. Tonke suffering a bit of team damage there from Sulaby, which is a little unfortunate for Magic, but that should be a res, no problems at all.
Just trying to get a bit of an idea and a gauge where phase 2 may cause the most issue, and I'd probably have to say it's a southern shift.
Yeah.
There's no teams south of Los Leones, none. Up north, there's a lot. You got quite a few teams around the Bendita region, so anything that is essentially not south is going to be, I think, fine for most teams. Evil Patrick actually going to be the first one on the kill feed. It's Flash. It's those stolen by Hisaki of Cerberus. Just those little things, though, for Angel Alliance that I think on day 1 would have gone their way, would have been able to somehow secure that. Not quite going their way here for day number 2, but they're getting involved. We saw it in game 1. They got into that fight early on. Didn't quite win it, but they're more than happy to stand their ground, Angel Alliance, and I wouldn't count them out yet. And on Erangel, they are just as good as they are on Miramar. Regardless, 5 seconds until phase number 2. And as I said before, anything but south. And I think the players should be pretty happy. And, well, I mean, how about just dead center? Los Leones still in play, Bendita, Picardo. I mean, this is a great circle, really.
Yeah, you got 3 big power players in this circle as well. Cerberus, Bay, and Fury. And it's quite interesting to just keep an eye on what they're doing as far as their rotations are concerned. You can see Fury is on the move at the moment. They're just bringing Insight back into the fold, centering him up a little bit, joining the team together. Whereas Bay and Cerberus are kind of keeping their splits intact. Admittedly, Fury had sort of a 4-man split, whereas Cerberus have a 3-man and Bay have a 2-2 split. So a lot of ground being covered by those 3, I'll call them superpowers of this game, which is not a huge surprise because they are the teams that had the easiest rotate into the initial circle. Cerberus coming from Picardo, Fury coming from Los Leones, and Bay coming from La Bendita. But the question is going to be, are they able to keep locking down those positions, or do they get breached? Do they decide, okay, now it's time maybe for someone like Flood, for example, who's very far south of the rest of his team here in Los Leones, to just come back up to the north, join up with Waikika Mukau, make that a 2-2 split for Fury, or do they want to continue getting the information of what's happening in Los Leones and south of Los Leones and keeping control of that area of the map to an extent? And I think for Fury, at least in their style of play, is very much keeping those splits intact for as long as possible and only joining up really when they are forced to. Which, based on the positions that they're in at the moment, it seems unlikely that they will be forced to. I think it's quite a good play from them to keep that split intact. LG Divine, another one of the top teams in the competition. In fact, the top team at the moment in PCS3. Don't quite have so much of a luxury as having a 2-2 split or a 1-1-1-1 split. They are having to rotate in, and they are only just now starting to feel a little bit more comfortable as they've gotten to the south of Graveyard and have found a compound to hole up in for the near future. But they'll be hoping for a northern shift, and so will Division X Gaming, who we checked in with a little bit earlier. And they're still on that rotate down from the northern part of the map. They have been driving this whole game. It's been a rough one for them so far.
Yeah, it certainly has. LG Divine, though, I mean, if they get a northern shift, Miramar is just kind of like their god if it happens. Because I want to sit here and say that this is going to be a game where LG Divine are going to need to actually play edge, get into fights early on, and really get dirty and scrap their way towards a win, more so than the other games. But all it really takes is a northern shift, and then they don't really have to move much at all. Mickey going with a seat swap, ambitious, not going to be able to successfully get that onto Fergus. Edie probably in a better position to get 1 or 2 here. Can get 1 off the bike, that's Neil. Now, Long K got out of that truck, made the run over towards Edie, but Edie's up for the task, picks up 2, and Division X Gaming have just been torn to shreds. Buram United, though, may lose Edie for this. He's down to 1 HP. Mickey just can't quite secure that one. Fergus with a clear shot onto Nordra, and will eliminate him, so at least Division X can bite back a little bit here. Edie was able to stay on his feet, though, gets off that first aid kit, stays alive. The Buram do lose 1. Edie gets a 3rd, though, onto IQ 500. Well, technically a 2nd. There's a 3rd one waiting around, although I think Fergus is going to get out of this area and look at the circle. Jordan, what did I say? Look who's in the middle of it.
Well, there's a few teams in the middle of it, but LG Divine, I'd imagine, is the one that you are speaking about, and they will be following the same sort of gameplay that they had on Miramar so far. Getting into a center circle position for Phase 3, Phase 4, and hoping for the best from there. And they can definitely expect that this is going to be a very, very solid compound for them. It's basically smack bang in the center. I'm kind of surprised no other team has gone straight to it. Because when you think about the rotation that LG Divine had to make, they probably weren't the first team that could have gotten there first.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing with that position is you're not going to get kills.
Sure.
It suits LG Divine's gameplay. They're more than happy to get like a 5 or a 6 kill win. I mean, we've already seen that time and time again. It works. And especially when you're in first place, that's fine. You're getting your 15, 16 points. But for a team like Cerberus and Bay, those two teams are on the edge of that little crater. You get that higher ground elevation, you can see more, you gain more information, and obviously, worst case scenario, if you ever need to go in there, maybe you do, but they've both already got buildings there. They're more likely to get kills, and that's really what those teams need, are those kill points. So I think right now, those three teams, Bay, Cerberus, and LG Divine, are all really with this circle.
You definitely wouldn't be complaining about it, that is for sure. Fury have brought Flood up north of Los Leones, and you can see Unicorns taking the building that he was waiting around in for a moment. I'll have to Flood. That's the one. Yeah. Anyway, Purple Mood rotating their way up as well. So Unicorns might actually have a little bit of an engagement on their hands. Day Trade, you can see as well, just over to the west of them as well, and even just west of Day Trade as we pan over to the left, I'm sure you would see Angel Alliance over there as well. So quite a few teams hanging around near Los Leones. Purple Mood seems to have an awareness that Unicorns are there up in the northern part of Los Leones, and it's a team that they'll have to move past. Circle's starting to push at their back, so no time to mess around. Got to get a move on.
You just wonder if they're going to go direct, or are they going to sort of wrap around, go all the way out to the west, or all the way out to the east, try and come in from a different direction. See how that one plays out. Mad Dog on the move, along with the rest of Angel Alliance, of course. Close by to Sharper Esports. It's not a bad location. They're going to get involved early on, just like game number 1 against Sharper Esports. Didn't quite go the way of Angel Alliance that time around. Maybe this time they can have the better of the exchange. And, well, Purple Mood didn't really go too far. They've crashed straight into Unicorn Cyber, and they're coming off better, which is probably not too much of a surprise, to be honest. As Phase 4, right on top of that crater, it's going to be the center point here for match number 2. Clee with the nade underarm. Didn't really prime it for that long, though. May still get the player, though. Just moments. Does get 2 hands. Los Santos cleans up. It's only Clee that remains. Drops down. Gets a nice knock onto Los Santos. Can't get the second, though. And fortunately, Just Moments will get the refrag. They get the 4K, does Purple Mood Esport. And it's nice for them. Gets them up to 14th position and away from second last, although technically they're still tied with Ferox. And unfortunately for Unicorn, they do stay down the bottom.
Well, what's more interesting to me is what is happening on these rotations. And so you can see at the moment, we're keeping an eye on Magic, who have just gotten themselves into the dip north of where Bay are holed up. But we are going to be seeing a lot of engagements all over the place. This is not one that I would like to be taking part in, because for Sharper and for Angel Alliance, they are both outside of the circle. They don't have that much time to clear one another out. And quite frankly, both are going to come out of this worse for wear. It doesn't matter who wins it. You're surely losing a player here or there on this kind of a battle. And then you're coming into the circle late. It's just going to ruin your game.
And if you don't win it, then you don't even get the kill points either. So it's double doom, or it could be potentially double delight if you can win this and somehow get into the next circle with 3 at least intact. I'll give that one as a win. God Meow's actually just been eliminated by Gypsy Danger from the future. Not good signs for Buram United. Another slow start here on Miramar. Evil Patrick and Algin Bots both knocked down. Mad Dog and Nan have got a lot of work to do here. And just like game number 1, it's Sharper Esport who are coming out on top against Angel Alliance. There goes Canaxi and Edie. Buram are out in 14th position. Miramar certainly has not been kind to them here for PCS3 APAC. They do their best work on Erangel, and just like day one, they're going to have to bring it there as well. Nan should get at least one. Wow, doesn't even win that. Kim Siver with a quick double onto Mad Dog and Nan. And Angel Alliance, just slowly, Jordan, very slowly tumbling down the standings.
Yeah, they certainly are. We were very impressed with what we saw from them yesterday, but they haven't been able to follow suit so far on day 2. I guess the expectation wasn't necessarily that high for Angel Alliance. They exceeded the expectations yesterday. Maybe we've set the expectations a little too high, though, going into day 2. Speaking of high expectations, Fury on our screens right now is a team who I am expecting to see some good stuff from. And with 4 players alive this late in the game, this is now time for them to start to work their magic. We've seen them have some very, very good performances from positions like this, edge of the circle, mid-late game on Miramar, just fragging out. And they're going to go up against Purple Mood, who is one of the weaker teams at the moment in the competition. So potentially some points on offer there. For now, we'll focus on Magic and Hydra. And it's Hydra down to 2 after the res does come across onto Tuan. But Nicky trying to hold on strong. It's unlikely to go too well for them here, I'd say.
They're copying it from both sides, but this is where Battle Arena Elites need to get involved. As we switch over to their point of view, you can see them now just hearing what is happening. And the position that they had earlier, as I mentioned, from that position, they can now push out, get to these sort of fights, get involved, look to pick up a few kills. You see it there on the kill feed. Neferhor does steal Gypsy Danger from... So that's at least a kill that they've been able to acquire. They're around this. They've already got a good position. They can really capitalize now. Battle Arena Elites look to pick apart what is essentially 2 very wounded teams, Hydra Gaming and Magic Esports. On the other side of this as well is Ferox. They can get involved here. They can have a really big game from this position. The entire northern side of the circle is theirs for the taking. So it's looking good for the team from Australia. Battle Arena Elites with 2 kills. Can they find any more? And as I mentioned before, LG Divine, they haven't really been in the kill feed because they haven't been able to see any of this action. They are down in that crater. They're going to get a high placement point. They may very well win it from here, Jordan, but they're not going to get kills.
Definitely seems likely that LG Divine, like if you had to put a bet on it, it probably would be LG Divine at this point, the team that you'd be putting your money on to win the game from here. They are the only team with any really substantial hard cover toward the center of the circle. Life gets a bit difficult now for Fury with that shift. They're going to have to cross the road, and it seems that they might want to go early. Purple Mood, on the other hand, appear to want to go late. Waikikamukau and Insight now sending it, and they had no idea maybe that Purple Mood was there, because Waikikamukau has just absolutely copped it, and I can see this going quite poorly indeed for Fury. They're so split, so isolated. If Insight goes down here, surely they're done.
Nade is just short. Insight is at least able to move away from that vehicle, get close, push up close. Doesn't have a frag grenade. Does see Rocky Jims, though, just on the very edge of that smoke, somehow catching him, and does get that elimination. Battle Arena Elites, though, under a little bit of pressure here. They weren't able to capitalize on that wounded Magic Esports. Now they have to go toe-to-toe here. Neferhor gets up, gets Sulaby, but is now knocked down in the process. That's from Monty. That's a third party from the northern edge of this battlefield here for phase number 5. I don't sense Neferhor's going to get brought back up, and he isn't. It's Rain who does secure that one. There's 2 fights happening at the moment. We're switching between them back and forth. Now it's over to Sophia, who gets 2. He got Tonkei and Umama. Valix, though, for Magic Esports will stop Sophia in his tracks. I think it's a 2 versus 1 right now. Loki's can't spot the remaining player for Magic Esports. To your right-hand side, no, he loses it out to Valix. Jukesy has to come up clutch, but he can't see him. That smoke is still plumed, and he doesn't have a frag grenade to throw in there. You know where he is, Jordan, but he can't see him.
You just need to spam through the smoke almost at that point. Unfortunately, that's not such an easy decision to make. The comms would have come through from his teammate that maybe he was on the right side of the smoke there, but even still, the chances of you hitting the shots that you need fairly slim. So we'll go back over to the western side of the map. Keep an eye on Sharper. Never mind, we're back over to Jukesy as he waits for those smokes to fade. Valix has refreshed the smoke, though, and he's still sitting inside of that one. Advantage is, though, with Jukesy. Valix coming out of the smoke is going to have more obscured vision, where Jukesy is just able to look around the side. Once the smoke fades, he knows exactly where to look, whereas as far as Valix is concerned, Jukesy could literally be anywhere at this point.
Well, there's another smoke that's just gone up as well, so Valix is buying even more time. The kill feed's just lighting up right now, though. It's Fury, who have just gotten 3 members
He just tried to
of
ban
Sharper
him.
Esport. Yeah, well, firstly the pan, but I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't actually get to see the Fury fight, to be honest. Here,
Yeah.
Juxie's going to get this kill. Like, it's a given, surely. Can't really lose that. He did just start shooting at Valix as we moved away from it. That smoke for Valix is just about to dissipate. Flood just can't stop finding kills in that kill feed. Now, Juxie is just realizing that that vehicle is providing cover for Valix, and I think he's just panicking a little bit here, but he's got so much time, so much space. Valix is low. He did get tagged up. 5 kills for Bay, who have moved into the top 11, and that worked out perfectly. It flips and moves out the way. 200 IQ from Juxie finally gets his prey. Now we switch over to Fury, but it might be too little too late.
Yeah.
They've got 10 kills, but they are wounded heavily. One's down, and unfortunately for Flood, just ran out of time getting that heal off and goes down to the Blues. So we miss out on all of those heroics.
It's pretty unfortunate.
Fury,
Yeah,
but they are into the top 2 based on all those kills.
It's definitely a better performance at the very least from them on Miramar. So credit where it's due. Fury have finally broken their Miramar curse in PCS3 APAC. They eventually run into Cerberus, and that's one team too many. LG Divine have some points on offer. Jun has pushed out from the compound. They're controlling this defilade. It's the end of Sololzi and Cerberus. Now suffering much the same fate. Oh, that's a good grenade. It's gone just a little too deep. Wasn't quite cooked enough. Jun's going to have another crack. Let's see if that one connects. Again, just too far. And the third also flying over Subang's head. But I don't know that that is going to be all of that, enjoyable for him regardless, because a couple of shots land on in his head anyways. So we're into the top 4. Bay with 1 player alive. It's Juxie, and he's done a pretty good job of getting his team to this position. 6 kills. Bay have definitely showed up on day 2, where they did not on day 1. But the real powers in this final circle, Ferox with 4 players alive, and LG Divine the same.
Well, we speak about sort of day 1 versus day 2. Ferox, we haven't maybe spoken too much about. They only had 4 points on the entirety of day 1. They were averaging 1 point a game. They're up to 14, so it means they've gotten 10 already from these first 2 games. They get this phase 7 circle as well. They really, right now, are the only ones that might be able to stop this LG Divine train on Miramar. They've got 4 alive. They haven't really been in too many tough fights either, so utility should be strong as well for Ferox here. They've got a slight high ground, and they've got the numerical advantage against Hydra Gaming. You would think they should be able to clean up all 3 members. At worst, you lose 1, but you would hope best case scenario, you lose none. Now, they've kept Rain back. He's playing more towards the circle and the position, making sure that once Sweetsoul, Bryn, and Monty deal with Hydra Gaming, they can come back freely, and they don't have to worry about that position being taken. And of course, Rain can sort of play as an anchor or an overwatch from that spot too. So this is looking good for Ferox. Just got to get the job done now. Execute down the stretch.
Well, you say that, but I'd have to argue this is looking good for LG Divine. Ferox is a team that's going to have to deal with this distraction from Hydra Gaming. Juxie could be a problem for LG Divine, but Ferox, who cares? They've just, oh my god, they've deleted Hydra Gaming. They were not even there for any more than 5 seconds on the Ferox screens, and then they were gone. So, easy off bam. Love to see that from Ferox, but now what can Juxie do? Because he's the X factor in this situation. It's a 4v4. LG Divine have taken that opportunity while Ferox was fighting to push forward, take a bit of map control. Well,
and he's dead.
Juxie can't do too much. So we're into a 4-on-4. Very interesting to see how this plays out, because Ferox are the team that has the high ground. So they theoretically have the decision as to when to fight. But I don't know if they're aware that LG Divine is this close.
Yeah. Nicky pushing up the front, man. He's got an MC as well just to his left. Now, what Jun is doing is just sweeping around, making sure that there's no solos. Obviously, they're not 100% sure there's 4 up for Ferox. At the very least, just making sure there's also no members of Ferox around that. So as much cover as possible, but it's actually Rain with a quick flank. Doesn't execute, though, with those shots. Jun's going to punish him with the MK14, but actually doesn't punish him that much either. Did take a little bit of damage, and it does mean more than anything, they know Rain's position. Ferox are really split here. If one goes down, especially Sweet Soul and Monty, they're not probably going to get brought back up. It'll be very difficult to get a revive. But you mentioned it before, Ferox do have a high ground. If they keep rotating too much, though, they may actually give it over to LG Divine. They need to be patient here and understand sort of where they're standing when they take these fights, what angles are shown. You can kind of see, actually, I think best from Jun's POV here, Jordan. You can see the hill that really is here, that Levi's, Nikki, and NMC are just charging right up, but it's Jun from that flanking position that gets the knock onto Rain. Fortunately for Ferox, that's the one player that should be able to get revived by Bryn.
Well, Bryn is not interested in getting that revive at the moment. He's more interested in providing Overwatch for his teammates, which is understandable, but it does leave Ferox in a 3-on-4.
Got to get the revive.
LG Divine, no, they're pushing the issue. I don't think that Bryn really has the opportunity here, because if he does, he leaves Sweet Soul and Monty high and dry. Luckily now, they've slowed the play down enough, Ferox, that, as you say, Rain is given the opportunity to go for the revive. But that was a dangerous moment for Ferox. If they allow LG Divine to run over Monty and Sweet Soul, that's the game over. I kind of like that gameplay from LG Divine, though. I almost feel like they could have pushed it a little bit further, but they didn't feel they had the opportunity. And so, again, things slowed down a little bit. We're back to fairly even setups with both teams being healthy enough. LG Divine starting to probe the top of this hill, though.
Well, this is the issue now, though, for LG Divine. If Rain or Bryn decide to flank down below, they might actually be able to flank all the way down to the south, catch LG Divine from behind, where, of course, their entire backside is completely open to that south side. So Bryn and Rain, if they go together, could kind of pincer in between LG Divine. Sweet Soul and Monty on the north side, Rain and Bryn from the south side. LG Divine, how do you counter that? You've got no cover. As we get closer towards phase number 9, Monty and Sweet Soul, though, have to be very careful, because if LG Divine sort of blitz them and all rush over the top of the crest of this hill, they are going to be outnumbered, and Rain and Bryn aren't in the best position to really be able to get refrags and to really help out. It doesn't seem like Bryn and Rain are going for a super hardcore flank down below. They're just going to stick close by on the side. Jun's watching, though. Look at his position. He's the important one. If Jun goes down, I think LG Divine lose this.
Yeah, Ferox are playing the long game, though. They've got 2 players towards the center of the circle. Rain and Bryn have the better positions once this circle starts to push in. LG Divine, all their eggs in the one basket on this side of the hill. If they now start having to be pushed off of that bridge, then they're going to have a problematic situation ahead of them. Ferox doing a very good job of controlling the map at the moment.
2 minutes to go. Still quite a bit of time here. There's not much of a rush, although LG Divine are a lot closer to the blue on this eastern side of the circle. Obviously, for Rain and Bryn, they've probably got the best positions right now. Now they're starting to get on top of LG Divine, but Sweet Soul just cops a heavy one to the face. He's low. He has to fall back, get that heal off. Fortunately, with Rain and Bryn's positioning, they're able to keep LG Divine from actually pushing on to Sweet Soul. They can't get over the crest of this, and the smokes aren't really doing too much for them either. Because of the terrain, the smokes aren't giving them cover to Rain and Bryn. I feel like it's only a matter of time. Rain does get an MC. There's no revives here for LG Divine either. Sweet Soul now pushes over the top of the crest, and they can use that high ground advantage, but it's Jun who does get the knockdown onto Monty and buys some time for LG Divine. I don't think Monty can get revived here. Not much time, not a lot of information, but it looks like Nikki's going for the revive onto NamC while these smokes are up, and they're keeping at bay. Rain through the smoke, though, cops Jun. After NamC has just been revived, they lose Jun, so it's still a 3 versus 3. Make it a 3v2, though, because now there goes Sweet Soul, and those two definitely can't be revived, and I think maybe Bryn and Rain are too close to each other. Nikki's gone down to the blue. Rain in a 1 versus 2. Levi's is very much full HP. He does get NamC. 29 health for Rain, but he gets pushed on. It's the Kings of Miramar once again. 8 kills, 4 in zip. They will not be stopped on their map.
That is absolute insanity. 4 from 4 on Miramar for LG Divine, and this time they were made to really work hard in the end. A 4-on-4 against Ferox, who I think you could almost argue had the better position in the long run than what LG Divine did, but they've done it again. 100% win rate on Miramar so far in PCS3 APAC, and that storyline continues, Xenox. If they get a placement point, well, they're bound to end up getting 10. They can't get a single placement point on Erangel, but they can't lose the game on Miramar. So I don't know really where that leaves you, whether that's a good thing or whether that's a bad thing. Either way, a very, very tough fight in the end there against Ferox, and I think you could kind of see the pressure maybe getting to Ferox there. A few moments where some of the shots might have whiffed where they otherwise would have connected. They did well to get it down to the one-on-one, and I almost thought, I mean, I guess it was Rain really that did a great job of getting it to that one-on-one. I almost thought that he had a good opportunity of winning that. He was in like a 1-on-2 or a 1-on-3, but he had the better position. It's just unfortunate there was one too many players. He didn't have the HP to play with for that final duel, and LG Divine, they execute it again and just make it happen. It's unreal, but hey, at the very least for Ferox, that's a very good turnaround for what has been a rough season so far. They've got themselves a second place. They got a few kills on the board there as well, and a much better showing from them. So they're starting to turn things around.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I think they played that actually really, really well. Like, don't get it twisted. I think Ferox's positioning was really good there. They were patient, maybe at times a little bit too patient, but they didn't have a lot of information to work off. So ultimately, it was just the fact that we're going up against some really tough opponents. These are the winners from PCS3 APAC, right? It was never going to be an easy fight for Ferox, and I think they really did give it their all there, gave it their best, but LG Divine show their class when it matters in those tough situations. They didn't panic. They were able to use those smokes, get a very clutch revive as well throughout all that madness. Even after, I think it was Rain who got a nutty shot into the smoke onto Jun, they still clutched it out from there. Good positioning from Nikki, and then in the end, LG Divine come away with their 4th win on Miramar from 4 games. Incredible. 18 points. There haven't been massive kills. This actually, I think, might be the most kills they got out of those wins with 8. Which is a little surprising considering their position throughout the majority of that game was inside that crater where I said they weren't really going to get many kills. They got them in the late game. They've just been following the script really along the way here on Miramar so far. If you've just tuned in or you're not sure exactly what we're going on about, they won the first 2 games yesterday on Miramar, and now they've won the first 2 games today on Miramar as well. As for the 2 games of Erangel yesterday, Jordan, well, those weren't very good. We'll see how they go in the next 2 games.
Indeed, indeed. Well, Erangel is what's coming up next, and that could definitely change what we've been seeing so far. That was a much better map for Fury. And you can see here on the total leaderboard, it's LG Divine that have once again given themselves quite a substantial lead heading into the halftime of day number 2. But based on yesterday and based on what we saw on Erangel there, it might not be enough to actually give them that first place going out of day 2 as well. It was Buriram that did really well over the course of all 4 maps. Well, I guess the exception being the 4th map. So maybe they did well on 3 maps out of 4 yesterday. So far, Buriram have been a little underwhelming. They've only gotten 7 points out of the day. Fury has been probably the next best behind Divine, I would say. And there's a reason that they're up there in 2nd place as well. So they're getting on the board a little bit earlier on than what they did yesterday. So those teams that tend to thrive on Erangel are certainly licking their lips at the prospect of moving off of Miramar and seeing a little bit more green in the map.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's also LG Divine should be licking their lips too, because they get a chance now, a free punch to sort of change the narrative in terms of being only a Miramar team and being able to go and get points on Erangel. And if they do fail to get some points on Erangel, they've got the points in the bank regardless. But we're going to head to a break. When we come back, we've got 2 games of Erangel to close out day number 2 of PCS3 APAC. Well, Miramar's done. We head over to Erangel now for our final 2 games of the weekend here for day number 2 of PCS3 APAC. LG Divine, Jordan, they couldn't be stopped on Miramar, but they haven't really got going on Erangel yet.
No, they certainly haven't. So that's going to be something that we will definitely be keeping an eye on going into round 7 and 8. The other teams to keep an eye on, Fury, very, very good on Erangel yesterday. Interestingly enough, Hydra Gaming, 2 third places yesterday on Erangel as well. So, you know, maybe they're a bit of a dark horse for this map to pick up some points as well. And who can forget Buram with the 14 kill win in round 3 yesterday. That is the highest kill win we've seen so far in PCS3 APAC. So they're going to be a team to keep an eye on as well, although they've had a couple of rougher performances on Miramar today. So maybe luck isn't with Buram. Either way, LG Divine is the team to beat at the moment. 71 points, doing very well, top of the leaderboard by a fairly significant margin, but there is that Erangel performance from yesterday hanging over their heads.
In the first 8 games of PCS2 APAC, Divine had 3 wins. In the first 6 games of PCS3 APAC, Divine have 4 wins. So they've upped to themselves already off the back of PCS2 APAC. They want to be the first team in any PCS region for 2020 to win 2 PCS events. No team has been able to do it. If they can do it, they would also be the only team to have won 2 PCS events back to back. Long way to go. But if they are going to do it, if they are going to be this unstoppable force, they kind of need to still, you know, play Erangel a little bit better. We'll see how they go here. As you can see, the rankings on Erangel firmly in favor of Fury and Buram. And I'm actually just sort of scrolling my eyes down. 11th. There's LG Divine. 6 points average for LG Divine on Erangel. That needs to be bumped up just a bit.
Yeah, it definitely does, although not by a huge margin. If they can get 15 points, you know, something like that out of the games on Erangel, that would be more than enough to keep them in first place at the end of today. So I think for LG Divine, it's not a hugely high-pressure situation so much as a situation where they can look to improve on what they did yesterday. And, I mean, it's pretty evident based on the games on Miramar so far that they have a really good understanding of the rotations that they need to make on that map. But the question is, are they going to be able to have that same sort of understanding on Erangel? Because they didn't show that yesterday, and all eyes are in their direction. Over to Pachinki as well. We were discussing this a little bit earlier on this evening, Xenox, as to whether or not we would be seeing that contest in Pachinki between Magic and Ferox. And so far, the answer is yes. Both teams still wanting to root in that location. Which is,
I thought it would be
interesting.
Ferox who would leave.
Yeah, because Ferox lost that fight fairly convincingly in Game 2 on Erangel yesterday. But they still feel like they can give it another shot. And I don't necessarily disagree. Like, it's still early days in this tournament. So, you know, give it another attempt here. If things really go wrong again, I think that's when, you know, next week we probably see them shift off of Pachinki. But maybe they're the kind of team that wants to consistently contest. At the moment, I have to say, I think Magic are giving themselves a bit of a better name.
That's not a good start for Division X Gaming. Long K is fodder to Jun for LG Divine. Well, that's one way to get some points on Erangel. A nice early one for Jun. Every point matters, definitely. But just switching back again to that Ferox Magic Esports discussion, we're not used to seeing... I don't even really want to call it a hot drop, because it's not like one or the other team... Yeah, it's a contest for Pachinki, which a lot of the times can actually be quite civil. You know, it's like, you have the north side, we'll take the south side. We're not really looking to fight. If it happens, we'll get involved. But I think for the most part, both teams will just want to loot up and then get out of there. You do obviously bring up the point, and it begs the question, if you sort of want to win that site for the remainder of PCS3 APAC, you probably then do need to be a little bit aggressive. And we saw that yesterday from Magic Esports in Game 2. Game 1, nothing happened. It was a stalemate. Game 2, Magic Esports caught a member of Ferox, and then they got on the aggressive front, hunted down the last 3 members. Ferox could look to do the same in Pachinki, potentially. But at the same time, I'm not sure if they're going to want to do that. I think it'll just be a case of what we saw from Game 2. If someone gets spotted, an easy down, an easy knock, and then the quick flush, sure, 4v3, go hunt the rest and try and make sure they don't come back. But for the most part, you can loot 2 teams in Pachinki. It's not ideal, but you can do it.
Yeah, I don't know that Ferox is going to be the team that wants to get on the aggressive. We saw Tom K for Magic Esports being that guy yesterday. Remember, I think he actually got all 4 kills against Ferox. So, yeah, that's a performance that you're not maybe expecting to see every day of the week. Speaking of some kills, Heisaki has got the better of Jukesy. So, Bay, they've been doing pretty well so far today. They really did have 2 good performances on Miramar, but Erangel hasn't started so kindly for them. There's a Darcia without a driver.
Well, that would be Jukesy's Darcia.
It's still going.
Yeah. The spirit of Jukesy is pushing that one towards the Wizzy Tower, which I think will be its final resting place. But it's not a good start for Bay. You never want to lose a player inside the first 4 or 5 minutes, so it really sort of deflates the performance that they might be able to have here on Erangel, especially, as you said, after what has been a very good day number 2 for Battle Arena Elites. They can still have a good game here, though, since they've got 3 alive, decent circle around the Milta region. They don't have to travel too far. If anything, I'm actually slightly surprised that they did lose a player here, considering they don't really have to do too much rotating. So a bit of a shocker, not going to lie. As we bring up the Pick'em Challenge votes, I would imagine Unicorn might still be in first place. Again, a reminder in terms of the Pick'em Challenge, you can, of course, wait a little bit longer before you have to decide who you want to vote on. You can go early, which obviously teams like LG Divine, Fury, Buram would be the 3 favorites. Unicorn still in first place, despite the fact they're in last place. LG Divine, Buram, and Fury, the next 3 teams, although for some reason Fury has morphed into From the Future.
Yeah, From the Fury maybe. But what is interesting to note about this is LG Divine have gone up 3.1% since yesterday. They were at 10%. So their performance yesterday was enough to convince quite a few people to throw their lot in with LG Divine. And I'd imagine when we come back for next week's games, we might actually be seeing that go up a little bit further, because they will be definitely a strong contester. Interesting to see how they go here on Erangel for Game 3 of this evening. It was Fury that really stole the show on Erangel yesterday night. And they're quite uncontested in Yasnaya, which has been their new drop location on this map. Previously, they were down on Sosnovka Island at the military base. But Yasnaya seems to be working out for them a little better.
It's a good circle, this. I like this circle. You don't really have too much in ways of trickery. There's no Rozhok River. Sosnovka Island's not going to be a factor. There's not much water probably after this phase 1 does eliminate itself. We keep an eye on this Pachinki contest, which I think at the point where both teams sort of are finished looting, instead of just, you know, making their way out, getting in their vehicles and rotating, it's sort of like, all right, now what can we find here? Is there a member of Magic Esports running around, or a member of Ferox running around? Division X do have to be careful here. Talk about theatrics, though. Insight just getting the front row seat of Ronan's special delight on the motorcycle. And this is a 4 versus 3. So this is a very much winnable fight for Fury inside of this phase 1 circle, just next to Mansion. If they want to pursue this, they certainly can. Fergus, though, actually, the eager one, despite the fact that Division X are down a player. Although maybe he's just switching up the position, making sure Fury can't rotate into this building and flank from the side. I'm not sure exactly. I think Fury may be just giving up on this.
I think that's fair enough, right? As Fury, they won't know that that's Division X gaming. They haven't gotten a knock onto any of those players. So even if they are kill tracking, if they saw on the kill feed earlier that Division X had lost a player, they don't actually know just yet that that is a 3-on-4. And even if it is a 3-on-4, and they are aware of that, making that kind of a breach that early on in the piece may not be the wisest of decisions. So I think this is a better option for them, just giving up that position, moving away and looking for something else. Keep all 4 of your players safe and healthy. They've shown the tenacity.
They can take prison.
Yeah, and they've shown the tenacity late in the game as well. If they've got 4 players late, they do frag out. They're kind of like Buriram-esque in that instance, where they just take those fights and they seem to win them. But it's the early game fights that seem to get the better of Fury. If you'll notice, when they have 4 late in the game, they almost always are able to convert that into something. But if they lose 1 player early on in the piece, then it just seems to fall by the wayside for them. They don't tend to play those games out so well with only 1 or 2 players. There are some exceptions, obviously. Outliers, game 3 yesterday, they came second with the 2 players alive, but they did get a bit of a circle feed, and they were relatively untouched for most of that. But I think they are definitely a team that does a great job of converting the numbers that they have if they can keep them alive into the late game.
We're just moments away from phase number 2. Good start for LG Divine, getting on the board with that early kill. And not only that, they've got a good position as well. So it's all about whether or not they can translate their Miramar performances over to Erangel. And if they can do that, I think they probably run away with PCS3 APAC, to be fair. I'm happy to go early with that one. Phase 2 is going to go on top of Farm, which is currently unoccupied. I'd imagine that will change pretty quickly. Cerberus just going to make their way over from that sort of tollway near Milta and back over towards Farm. Bay are close by, but they're on the wrong side of the road. Same with Miramar around that Milta region. LG Divine group back over towards Levi's and Nikki. They're going to be in a good spot on the northern edge of this phase 2 circle. You can see making their way over now. And they might have a couple of teams drive close by up north. There's a few like Victim Rise, Sharper Esport. Ferox still making their way out of Pachinki very slowly. Magic Esport around Potato Hill. So nothing came of that, just as the update. And that Pachinki battle, which wasn't even a battle, and I don't think will be much of a battle throughout PCS3 APAC tonight. It's the knock on to Gen Foss, who's out in the open. Kamal's just going to send this one straight in. Tanoy on the other side of this little shack. Gen Foss has been eliminated.
Not a good spot for Kamals to be stuck. Look, Maximus up on the top of the hill. Kim Siva there as well. It's going to be pretty rough here for Victim Rise, but Kamals, he comes up big. Tinoy, he just sent it. He just ran straight at him. Takes the 1v1, and, I mean, obviously he's gone down as a result. Could have slowed that a little bit more so and waited for the backup from Maximus and Six Sacks. Now they're going to have to go forward, but I don't think they know Chibarit is there. And they certainly do not. He's got the knock on to Six Sacks. Molly goes straight in. Probably not deep enough to finish off both of these players, but certainly enough to keep them locked inside of that building. And it is Kim Siva that is going to have to be the saving grace here for Sharper.
Gibberit's got to be aggressive here. Unfortunately, the Molotov was not successful. Kim Siva's actually got knocked down. Sharper Esport had just been eliminated from what feels like a two-man duo. Samoy did do some work towards the end of that, but credit to Kamals and Gibberit for doing the brunt of the work there for Victim Rise. They come out on top, and for Sharper Esport, they are knocked out early here in match number 3 of the day. Sitting 5th at the moment. I don't think they will remain in the top 5 by the end of this game. And a good little sign of hope for Victim Rise. Yeah, for their fortunes as well.
Victim Rise sort of needed something like that. They've been sort of cruising along in PCS3 so far. But they haven't had a big performance. They haven't had a big game. They haven't really set their names up in lights. But being able to win an early fight like that, get lots of points on the board, and lock down a position, perhaps things can go well for them this game. Keeping an eye on the big name in the competition, LG Divine. They've worked their way pretty central in this circle, as they always do tend to find a way to do so. Circle will be moving off of the water, though, eventually, so be interesting to see who this ends up favoring, because there are a lot of avenues for that circle to move to.
Well, yeah, for phase 3, I mean, it can go right down to that beachfront.
That would be definitely interesting. Would be maybe one
Although
word.
I will say, I was going to say day 3. Phase 3 usually does kind of try to do the job of phase 4, even if it's not hard-coded. I've watched enough PUBG that usually I'm expecting this to go north and away from the water, which, for the most part, does take a large chunk out.
That's a big hard shift, though, over to the west.
It's an interesting position. I feel like we don't really see this sort of, you know, Snake Way area too often. And the fact that Potato Hill is also in this late into the game, phase 3 isn't really that late, but for the most part, an area like Potato Hill doesn't usually stay in too much. Usually it's the farm area, Jordan, that we see a lot more of these sort of circles. So teams are now going to have to shift away from farm and Milta, where a lot of teams were quite stacked. They need to rotate over in the more western direction, over towards the likes of LG Divine, Unicorn from the future. Day Trade have just gone over to the docks on the beach. Magic Esport in a good spot as well at the compound south of Potato Hill. So you've got quite a few teams well situated for this phase 3 shift, but so many that were around Milta, around Farm, that are finding it very difficult. As you can see here, Fury getting quite beaten up on this rotation, but have been able to keep 3 up. Have lost insight, though, earlier on.
Flood was definitely lucky to get away with his life. Waikiki Mukau, the Dacia, not really going to be going too far, so he's probably going to have to run it. God Meow gets knocked, which might relieve some pressure and allow Ronan to make the rotation to, I would say, I guess, the Wizzy. He's going to try and pick up Waikiki Mukau on the way inside of the smoke. Nicely done. Good teamwork. Looks like Fury will be able to keep all 3 alive, and it seems that that Wizzy hut will be their place of residence. Over to LG Divine, who are looking to lock down their compound and are being pressured a little bit by Bay. So far, no harm done for either of those players, but this grenade looks to be a pretty good shout. Jun Jux able to get downstairs.
Not much in terms of time here for Bay and LG Divine. They are pretty much dead center of this phase 3 circle. So a lot of utility could be wasted here because it's not as if there's a time issue. If they're just going to keep throwing nades and mollies and smokes and flashes back and forth, they could be out pretty quickly because, I mean, Bay can just sit a little bit off LG Divine. I think is basically what's going to happen here is now Sophia's just moved back and it's like, it's almost like a warning. Both teams sending on. Jun's like, all right, we're here. And Sophia's like, all right, we're here as well. Exchanging pleasantries, and then they retreat back to their compounds. 30 seconds until phase number 4 will be making its way in, which it doesn't necessarily have to hard shift too far north. There's not that much water. History does say, though, that towards Potato Hill is where this phase 4 circle should be heading. So day trade may or may not be in. If they're in, they're only going to be just barely scraping in.
Yeah, maybe those northern 2 buildings that they're sitting in might just clip the southern part of the circle. We'll see where it goes, and yeah, more or less. So day trade will be happy with that. So will Bay, LG Divine again, sitting right in the center of the circle. They just seem to be reading things perfectly at the moment. Buriram have heard Angel Alliance rotating up on them, and they're going to win the duels as well. Nordra and Canaxi just putting Nan and Agent Bots to bed. Angel Alliance, they've had a long rotation to get here. If you've been watching the mini-maps, they've just been driving this whole game. And only now are they trying to contest for a position, but
man,
it hasn't gone well for them at all. Mad Dog's done, surely.
Yeah. Well, they're going to go out here with no points. They've only picked up 1 point so far here on day number 2 of PCS3 APAC. Talk about pressure. Talk about Mad Dog, though, just surviving this at the moment and being a bit of a nuisance. Unfortunately, bad timing is he picked out the smoke grenade at the wrong time right as Canaxi pushed in. Buriram do deal with Angel Alliance, but now they're going to deal with Cerberus. Nordra, Edie, both knocked down. Fortunately, though, this is not a breach. It's just from a distance.
They're not going to push that. They don't want to leave the safety of their compound. Cerberus are already inside of the zone. Nice couple of knocks for them to continue to put that pressure onto Buriram. They've got the blue at their back. They're going to need to heal up quite quickly. They're going to need to make a rotation in. And now they're going to have to deal with if some of their players are getting knocked, faster revives as well later on down the track. So still good pressure being put on. Oh, there's a flip from one of the VTR players. It was Chibarit. He's landed on all 4 wheels. Luckily, he can keep driving forward, but they are driving directly at LG Divine, which, I mean, so far has gone okay. It's a 1-for-1. Levi's getting in the mix, though, will finish off Seymour. And now from the future, also making their mark on this fight.
Yeah, unfortunately for Victim Rise, they did get one. They got Nikki from LG Divine. He has been eliminated. Chibaret just sitting inside of his building. 6 kills for Victim Rise. If they do go out here, I think you could probably say it's been a decent game regardless.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. And unfortunately for them, it's just the fact that the compound that they chose to breach was LG Divine's. And this is going to make it a little bit harder for LG Divine to win this game now from here, down a player, because in all of their Miramar wins, they've been able to have their 4 players alive based on the fact that they've been pretty much dead center. While they are dead center for this circle, they lost the player to that breach. Flood just being a nuisance to God, Meow, and Edie. taking it back here, actually, this is the shack in the Wizzy Tower, if you recall, for the final game of PCS3 APAC, where Fury were making their last stand. Talk about bringing back memories. This is actually the Wizzy Tower. Jukesy ended up finding some supplies and looked to push a little bit forward. And as we know, it was not successful.
Well, can they be successful in this game? Fury are probably on the outer edge of teams that you'd expect to get a favorable shift here, but we've seen some pretty big hard shifts so far in Game 3 on Erangel, and maybe they're going to hope for another one to go out to the east this time. Hydra Gaming down to the south are looking okay at the moment. 4 vehicles available if they need to make a rotation, but this next circle shift is going to be a rough one regardless of where it goes, because there really is not that much real estate available for any of the teams. You've already got 4 in the center compounds.
Oh, man.
And it goes straight over the top of them as well. This is going to be a bloody one, because the teams north are going to have to come off the hill. The teams south are going to have to come away from the defilades. Cerberus will have to move out of their compound. Fury the same. And there's really nowhere to go.
Yeah, LG Divine looking great right now. Bay in a good position too. Both teams actually, of those 2 teams, down to 3 players. And while Mip and Zuzu and Chibaret combined get an MC and Levi's. Although revives should take place, you would think so. In this case, Jun's not actually in the same building as Levi's and MC, and Jun may not feel comfortable enough to make the run over.
He can. Yeah, I don't think he can.
Well, he can, and I think he's got no choice. I think he has to go for it.
Well, he's doing it. He is going for it. I'm seeing on the map right now. We're obviously watching Fury make their rotation, but
there it is.
Jun, this is the important run from him, and he's managed to get to the building. Levi's looks safe at the moment. He did cop a couple of shots from Bay while he was making that run. And in the meanwhile, Hydra Gaming are going to crash onto From the Future. So that's going to turn their attention away from LG Divine. And double knock from Hexagon.
Oh my God.
All right,
well,
that
we was...
that.
I think we're both a little bit taken back from that one. Unfortunately, we didn't quite get to see it, but a very unsuccessful push in the end from the Future, though. Were stopped momentarily from keeping that pressure on LG Divine, so they did get the revives back up. They've got all 3 up now. LG Divine once again. Cerberus and Fury going toe-to-toe. It's Subang with the knockdown of the Waiki Gabuka. Hayasaki will finish him off. Ronan thrown in the grass, very close. He's not going to get many chances here. Steps up, unfortunately, goes back down. And Fury are out in 11th. And they're unable to sort of keep their Erangel form run that they had from day 1 over into day number 2 for match number 7. Of course, there's one more game to play out after this, though. They can bring it back in that particular match.
Edie under a little bit of pressure right now. We'll jump back up to the north, which is where Ferox is trying to fight out against Purple Mood for a position, or at least an opportunity to make that death run down into the valley. It's a good kill for Rain, but it's not enough to give them huge advantages. They need to get rid of Rocky Gyms, and they do, or at least Magic does for them. Bryn probably dying to the blue here. It's Monty and Rain that will have to make the run for Ferox, but even winning that duel isn't going to give them a whole lot of respite, because Magic is pushing up the hill over to their west, and even if they do have to go off the hill, which they will inevitably, it's not going to be fun for Ferox here. Grenade lands right on top of Rain, does a significant chunk of damage, forces him back to heal, and another grenade lands at his feet. So that's the end of Rain, and very likely the end of Ferox as well, because Magic are looking to push the issue.
Yeah. Unfortunately for Ferox, down to just Monty. Fortunately, though, for Ferox, they've picked up 6 kills this match. They do continue their turnaround from day 1 here onto day 2. Not quite the ending to this game that... how have you managed that, Monty? How have you managed that? You probably couldn't try. You couldn't do that again if you tried. Sophia looking to play spoiler load to Cerberus. That nade's going to fall a little bit short. Actually, further than the mark. Does get the headshot knocked down, though, onto Sololzi. It wasn't even a headshot, actually. It was probably more his upper thorax. As there's still 3 up for Bay. If they can clear out Cerberus here, then they have got the entire eastern portion of this circle to themselves. Mip and Zuzu and From the Future are on the move, though. And what they don't realize is they've just pinted themselves between Bay and LG Divine in this small little building that Mipinzuzu has pushed himself into. This might not bode well for From the Future.
It may not, but at least they've got the advantage of high ground on Bay. They can look down on them, so Bay doesn't really have the ability to punish them inside of this building unless some good grenades, some good utility is utilized. And to be fair, FTF did have to make this move. They were outside of the zone in the compound that they were locking down, so they had to move to this house, or they had to move to somewhere, and making the run into the center of the circle just was not going to happen. So this was actually a good decision from them. They've made it work. They've got all of those players alive. They have XXX11165, what a name, still sitting back in the compound they were at prior, but he'll be hoping to rejoin the team soon. Either way, even if he doesn't make it, they've got 3 alive late in the game, and that's a good result.
I mean, I think Triple X is just a bit easier to say, but if you want to go with the numbers, Jordan, that's fine by me. I won't stop you. Rain has been stopped, though. Tonke getting that bleed out. Monty's still alive, though, for the time being for Ferox, and the longer he stays alive, more placement points they can achieve from this game. And speaking of placement points, dare I say, I think these might actually be the first placement points Unicorn have gotten so far. I could be wrong. I'll take a quick little look, and I'm right. This will be their first placement points of PCS3 APAC. That blue will stay alive as the solo for now. And From the Future, Jordan, another team kind of like Ferox that I think have really turned things around from day number 1.
Magic was a team that put in some good performances on Erangel, and I think they're starting to ramp up a little bit in this game as well. Tuan's copying the shots from Tonke as Magic come off the hill. They're moving south. It's just that blue, as you mentioned, sitting inside of that shack that's trying to hang on for Unicorns. This circle shift's quite interesting, though, because it is going to, for the first time, it feels like, force LG Divine From the Future Bay to actually move out of this stack of buildings that they've been locking down for the better part of 4 or 5 circle shifts. So now the onus is actually on them to make those moves.
Well, there goes that blue. Unfortunately, that's going to be the fairy tale run of Unicorn. Finished here for this match. From the Future, making their way out of this building and straight into the arms of Bay, who I think they're going to severely outnumber. Sophia just looks up and spots 3 members of From the Future in his face. Gypsy Danger, though, gets caught by Neferhor from behind. Unfortunately for Neferhor, not only the blue, but unfortunately he's on the low ground compared to Triple X, and Bay are down to just Lokis, which is bizarre considering the positioning that they had in this game. You thought they would be able to do a little bit more with it. Only the 3 kills, 6th place finish in the end for Bay. Not sure if I would give that one a tick, considering the circle they had in the earlier stages of this match.
Monty's kept himself alive, which is great news for Ferox, top 5 placing. Now, he has run into a bit of an engagement here against FTF, and that might well be where his game does end. Look at the ground that he'd have to cross. It's just not going to happen against 3 players. But either way, getting some placement points where it otherwise looked like Ferox might go out a little bit earlier. And they keep that points tally ticking over nicely. From the Future, though, up to 10 kills, looking really, really strong at the moment. That said, they turn their attention to the ever-present threat of LG Divine. And from a position like this, 3v3, v3, v potentially 2 now, do you really see LG Divine letting this one slip? The way that they have been able to close out games so far in PCS3, have to put my lot in with them here.
Yeah. And it sets the tone now, doesn't it, for LG Divine? It's been spoken about very clearly many times that they've been the kings of Miramar. Can they now be the kings of Erangel as well? Which in that point, well then, look, they were crowned champions of APAC in PCS2. They still very much are playing like champions. 81 points now. Certainly firm favorites. From this point onwards, it's just about keeping the pace that they have now set for themselves. Valix with a knockdown onto Veronica. Magic Esports continue to do well. They're in the top 4 at the moment in the leaderboard and look like they might be able to keep the pressure right onto Daytrade. Flash just gets caught before being able to get behind that shack in time. Nicely done from Tonke, who in my eyes maybe is probably almost the MVP right now of APAC. He's just been exceptional to watch for Magic Esports. They've got a very special player there as Jun will eliminate Hexagon and From the Future are out. And as you said, where do you see LG Divine losing this one? I personally don't. This would be 3 wins in a row Jordan.
Yeah, you don't see that every day.
I think it's been done in any PCS region.
Certainly not in APAC.
Certainly not in APAC. We can definitely attest to that one.
Yeah, it's not easy to get 3 in a row. Not easy to get 1 at this level of competition, but it's certainly being made to look that way for LG Divine. Magic Esport, though, may play spoiler. It's a 3v3. Problem for Magic Esport, though, is that they have been fighting while LG Divine have been taking all of this time to just find all the best positions inside the circle, set themselves up, control the zone. Look at that. And Magic are stuck on this one side. They have no cover at all, apart from the shack and the one tree that they're hiding behind. But once the circle pushes in, which it is now doing, and they're forced to move, there really isn't that many places for them to go. So smokes are going to have to get chucked out here for Magic. LG Divine definitely in the premium position. But as you said, maybe the MVP for the tournament so far, Tom K, still alive. He's been having a great tournament for Magic.
Yeah.
Can he pull off something? Can Magic pull off something? Can they pull off the impossible and stop LG Divine from getting the hat trick of victories here in PCS3?
The last team to win 2 in a row was Divine. They finished second in that third match after getting those 2 wins. Could it happen again? It would be almost scary. That was rounds 4, 5, and 6 that they won 2 and then got second. This is rounds 5, 6, and 7. How scary. But what it shows me is that Divine are heating up. They're showing us what they're made of. What a start here to PCS3 APAC. Inside of the first 7 matches, they could potentially win 5 of them. Ridiculous. 5 out of 7, potentially. It's not done yet, though. And Magic Esport are the perfect team to play spoiler. As you said, led by Tong K. If they can get one knock on a very split Divine, it can really open up this battlefield. But the same could be said here as well. If Divine get a member, especially someone like Valix, who's a bit more on the edge, that's not a nade, that's a stun. It's not going to do too much. The Molotovs go out as well. I would suspect that the actual frag grenades for both teams are at 0. I don't think they would have any, otherwise they would have been thrown out by now. Now it's about the smoke usage as this phase 9 blue does make its way in. It's the MC who gets the opening frag out of Alex. Syllaby goes down to the blue, too much damage. It's, you guessed it, LG Divine. Winner, chicken dinner. 5 of 7 to start PCS3 APAC. They don't know what losing is. They only win.
And 3 in a row today as well for them. They have just rocketed up the standings. They're up to 90 points now. Unbelievable from LG Divine. It was almost on a silver platter for them there, though. You could see that circle positioning that they had against Magic was really just too good. And it was Magic with their backs against the wall that when they had to move, unfortunately didn't have enough. And LG Divine are setting PCS3 APAC alight. They are dominating at the moment, and it's hard to imagine that anyone else is going to catch them. They don't even need to continue this kind of trajectory. It reminds me of Q Confirm in PCS1. The start that they had was so damn good that they dropped off by something like 50, 60% in the second week, and yet they still had enough points. They had enough of a lead that they were able to hang on to first place, and they came away with a victory very, very comfortably there. We might get the same kind of a situation here for LG Divine. As you've said, 5 wins out of 7. What more do you really need to do? You just need to cruise along at 5 points a game for the rest of this tournament, and you're going to be far and away the top team. The projections were something like 160 to 180 points. Well, they're already up to 90, and we're not even nearly halfway through the season.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It just feels like a one-horse race now. It's a matter of who can stop Divine. Everyone else almost needs to band together and take these guys down because they are just playing on a different level right now. You can make the argument, Jordan, you really can, about being fed or getting circle luck. But one thing I noticed in that particular game is they were quite north. They ended up actually coming down towards those compounds where it ended up finishing. So sometimes you make your own luck. And that's what Divine have, I think, been able to really do. We've actually brought it up a couple of times, even on Miramar, where they went into that crater, where they played for that position, right? That was a risky position to go into. I know it was a previous game, but I think it really fits to the narrative that They're playing to their strengths. They know what that is, and that's late game. Get to the late game with 3 or 4 alive, and we'll get the job done. And they've proven it time and time again. 5 out of 7 wins now. That is unprecedented. 3 in a row. Hasn't been done in PCS APAC for the entirety of 2020. They've just gone and done it. So they're doing something right. You can't just put it all down to luck. Is luck there? Certainly, but not making up all of it.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is now they're also picking up a bit higher in the kill margin too. 9 kill wins, 8 kill wins. So their point tally is very much increasing. They've already got a very substantial gap, 36 points over Fury. I know we've got a lot of games to play, but it's looking quite ugly for the rest of the competition.
Yeah, looking fantastic for LG Divine. I think I saw Paper Thin saying earlier that Oath in Charity Showdown got 4 wins in a row. So they aren't quite at that level just yet, LG Divine.
But that's not PCS.
Well, I mean, it kind of is and it isn't. Like, I see what you're saying, but I'm going to go ahead and count it. I think LG Divine definitely on the roll. Look like they might be able to equal or better that based on what we've been seeing so far. 90 points. 5 chicken dinners, 50 placement points. The storyline continues. Either they get 0 placement points or they get 10, and that is just astronomical numbers for them. It's a great turnaround for LG Divine as well, as far as the kills are going as well. I like that you bring that up because a few of those earlier wins, I was sort of saying, yeah, okay, I was on that train of thought where, yeah, they're getting a bit of luck, they're getting those circle feeds a little bit, and they're not having to work too hard for these wins. And they were down like 5-10 kills on teams like Fury, teams like Buriram at the end of day 1. But now on day 2, they are not only winning the games, but they are fragging out and they're having to work hard. You know, that last one, they got a few circle feeds from sort of 4, 5, and 6. But once that circle shifted away from them, the situation was as tough as it was for them, for the likes of Fury, for From the Future, for Bay, for all of those teams. And yet it is Divine that come away with the victory. And I don't think that there's any surprise as to why that might be. They are certainly the best team in APAC right now, and they are showing exactly why.
Yeah, you got to give the plaudits where it is due. 5 of 7 so far from Divine. Can they make it 6 from 8, which would be 4 from 4 tonight? We go to a break. When we come back to the LG Divine Slaughterfest. Welcome back to the LG Divine Show, because that's really what it is. They just can't stop losing. 3 wins in a row. They're going for number 4 very shortly on Erangel. The Kings of Miramar, Jordan, are just the Kings of APAC.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way, doesn't it? We had our reservations about LG Divine coming out of day 1 because of their results on round 3 and 4, which was an 11th place and a 13th place respectively. So 2 sort of average games, I would say, on Erangel, but they've definitely turned that around today. 3 wins in a row. Obviously, one of them being on Erangel. Got a 9-kill win just before, and now they're going for 4 on the trot. A clean sweep of day 2 for LG Divine. What a storyline that would be. I mean, already they're setting this scene alight. They've almost doubled the next closest competitor, which is Fury on 54 points. LG Divine's at 90. So there's going to be a hell of a lot of catching up to do for the likes of Fury, Magic, and Buriram, who are now making up the peloton, if we are to continue with the cycling references, because it's quite evident that we have a runaway, we have a leader, and then we have a peloton, we have a middle of the pack. But unfortunately, it really doesn't look like that peloton is going to be catching up too quickly. LG Divine are just on a tear at the moment. And I mean, the question is, are they ever going to run out of wind?
Yeah, that's the major question. Look, I posed a different question as well. Which other teams in other regions have been able to get 3 in a row? My lovely friend from Korea, Paper Thin, he answered that question. Oath in Charity Showdown and Wildcard from PCS1 managed 3 in a row. I asked him, what about 4 from 4? And it was just Oath in Charity Showdown. That was a long, long time ago. Technically wasn't even part of the PUBG Continental Series Circuit 1, 2, and 3. So you can count it if you want, but otherwise this could be a history-making game. The only other one where a team got 4 in a row, which was courtesy to my friend Froz, was Na'Vi won 4 games in a row in the PCS2 group stage. Not the finals, though, so again, you can count it if you want, but regardless, the point is this could be a history-making match for LG Divine if they can win this. And look at the rankings now on Erangel. They were 6. It's now 25 points. A huge upgrade from just 1 match for LG Divine. And we'll see if they can close the night out in a history for them.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. It's great to have such a global community as well, Xenox, that you can get answers to that kind of a question so quickly as well. I mean, shout out to those guys for helping us tell the story of APAC, even despite being all around the world, and such a good global community that we have here in PUBG. We'll see if LG Divine can make history by getting all 4 as we dive into game number 4 of this evening. It's the final match that you guys will get to watch in APAC for the week. But of course, we'll be back next weekend with days 4 and 3. Circle shift straight over the center of the map. So nothing too crazy to start things off here. I guess the plane path was a little bit interesting. It was quite far over to the east. And Fnatica has found one of the Unicorns players.
Well, there's at least backup. The cavalry has arrived, and 2Ns will be able to pick up that blue, and they can get out of here. Yeah, look, the plane path was a little bit shifty, but for the most part, I think the teams should be fine with this, and they are already quite comfortably spreading out to their loot locations. We just saw briefly they drop on Pachinki, Ferox, and Magic Esports. If you're not aware or you haven't seen the Erangel games, this has been a common occurrence throughout so far all of the matches on Erangel. It was only match number 4 from yesterday that we did actually see the 2 teams collide. Matches 3 and matches 3 today, there was no interference between the 2 teams. Maybe lucky 4, we might see it happen again. I don't think so. For the most part, the way it's been going is Ferox have been looting the north side of Pachinki, Magic Esports looting the south side of Pachinki. Once they loot up, they do kind of do like a little dance off and see if someone makes a wrong move, and if one does get caught. We did see yesterday that Magic Esports pounced. They did get an early kill. They collapsed on the other 3 members of Ferox, and that was about it. So if something happens, the observers, our wonderful observers, will jump back over that, but it doesn't always pop off.
Yeah, it doesn't really. It's in an ideal world, it shouldn't. You know, that's the way that I think both teams would probably prefer things to go. I guess Magic, up on 52 points now, are really feeling a little bit hard done by that Ferox is continuing to drop in Pachinki. But if they're happy to allow them to do that, you know, it's pretty obvious that they are, because they're not trying to force Ferox out or anything like that. So for the moment, it seems to be working out fine for Magic. They've been putting in some good work on Erangel over the course of PCS3. Victim Rise is one of those teams that I guess might be a little disappointing so far, I would say. They're down in 11th, and we've seen them quite a few times in PCS so far in APAC, and might have thought that they would have been a little higher up on the standings, but it is a fairly strong field. I sort of look at the top 8 and I think, who would you actually take out of that top 8 right now? And I don't think that there is anyone that you would really take out there, to be honest.
Yeah, who would you be putting in?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I would be putting in Victim Rise, but who would I be taking out is the question, and the answer is probably none of them. I guess maybe Magic, right, is the surprising factor because they are sort of a newly formed team and not a team that we had a whole lot of intel on.
Yeah, but based on the history.
Yeah, based on the history. But aside from that, every team that we've got there has played in PCS before. Even Sharper, which is a team that, you know, maybe people won't recognize based on their name, but it's 3 out of 4 of the members of Golden Cat. So no surprise to see them up in the top 8 as well. And yeah, I mean, I guess PCS3 so far is showing us, I would say, the highest level of competition that we've got from PCS. We were a little, you know, we were reminiscing a little bit after last night's broadcast and off the air, saying that it was nice that there wasn't a team that had sort of run away with things, and it was kind of keeping the games interesting and the matches, you know, a bit of a discussion about a top 4 as opposed to a top 1. That seems to have fallen by the wayside a little bit tonight. So unfortunately, we don't get to have a real battle for first place at the moment. But look, it is definitely a great start for LG Divine, but it's not uncatchable at the moment. Obviously, the longer we go through the season, once we get into day 3, once we get past the halfway mark, and then we're on the downhill stretch, we'll probably start to change our tune a little bit. And it is definitely going to be tough for even Fury to catch up to them, but they can do it.
Is this like the Hunger Games and Mishka's just like paid to send a crate into Ferox?
Team Ferox with a lovely donation to PCS3. Thank you very much. And here is your loot crate.
Grozer in there as well, which will be acquired by Monty. Yeah, look, I agree with you. I was very much happy about a top 4 that we had. PCS1 APAC was essentially the Golden Cat show. PCS2 became a bit of a 2-horse race. Actually, no, it was more of a 3-horse race, and Miramar did drop off a little bit towards the end. Fury kept going, obviously matching with LG Divine. So I think LG Divine have been so great, though, to watch at their absolute peak that I'm not sure whether or not I would want to see teams like Magic Esports and Miramar keep going and putting the pressure on them, or maybe just sit back and watch the spectacle that is LG Divine and just see them run away with it. And I'm sure that people have chosen them for their pick'ems, which will be much more amount of people picking them after this weekend. We'll definitely enjoy watching LG Divine run away with things, as I think they've got a good position here so far for phase 1. 2 minutes until phase number 2. Fury on the early rotation. No kills yet, no knocks yet either. We've only gone 7 minutes here for the final match of the night. A reminder that, of course, in a few hours after this will be PCS3 Europe, as Flood is going to be knocked by Neferhor, former teammates from PCS2. Flood, obviously part of Bay, and swapped over to Fury. And this is not looking good for Fury, though.
No, it's certainly not. Although it's not looking amazing for Neferhor either. Sophia, he's just sending it straight at Waikikamuki. I'm not sure about that one. How? Oh my god, I thought he was going to win that duel. Waikikamuki, though, does hang on to it in the end. That was unbelievable. Waikikamuki also gets the knock on Neferhor, but they haven't been able to save Flood because Juxi lands a nade right on top of him. There's a little bit of revenge for both teams involved. I don't know that Neferhor will survive here, though. Waikikamuki knows more or less where he is. LG Divine is lurking. And I'd say this could be some pretty hefty points on offer. Wow, Booram's rocked up as well.
What is going on?
This is a feeding frenzy. The Sharks are circling. They've sensed the blood in the water, and Bay and Fury are the bait.
Yeah, they're the tuna right now, struggling to get away from these Sharks. Insight knocked by NemC. What a horrible way to end the night for Fury. Ronan and Waikikamuki are just trying to get out of here alive. If these two can get out, 2 kills, despite the fact that they lost Insight and Flood, I've seen enough of these two in particular. During clutch moments, they do come up big, especially the likes of Ronan. So you wouldn't count them out just yet, but they are going to have themselves a bit of an uphill battle for the remainder of match number 8 here, our final game of the night. And well, they are actually heading uphill as well, literally. As for Bay, they're also in a pretty tough spot too, down to 2 remaining players. Nan's just rocked up for Angel Alliance to try and help out here against the push of Bury, but he's taken a nade to the face by Canaxi, who takes out Nan. Unfortunately for Angel Alliance, Jordan, the fairy tale run seemingly has come to an end, but they've only picked up 1 point for the entirety of day number 2. They're actually going to get their 2nd point here because Evil Patrick will get Canaxi. And that's not good news for Buriram. Great news for LG Divine because all these teams directly below them falling by the wayside.
Certainly are. Edie has gotten the knock though onto Evil Patrick, so a bit of stabilization there, at least for Buriram. Will send the Angel Alliance players scurrying away. That UAS looking a little worse for wear, stuck on the rock, but a grenade will set it loose, I'd say. And it seems that Mad Dog and whoever's up there with him going to be able to get away from this one okay. Angel Alliance, though, don't get out of that scot-free at all. They've dropped down to 10th place. Came into today somewhere around 4th or 5th.
They were 3rd.
3rd even. Yeah, there you go. So has been quite a fall from grace for them.
Yeah, 3rd with 37 points. A big drop-off. Only the 2 points gained. So it's a little disappointing because I really felt the way they were playing on day 1, they could continue that sort of performance. It's not as if they were just getting lucky. They were balling out. Mad Dog was fragging out. They were positioning well. It really looked like good signs. Unfortunately for the Philippines team, it has, well, as I said before, fallen by the wayside very, very quickly, Jordan.
This is a rough one for Fury. Still looking for somewhere to pull up around Potato Hill at the moment. Lots of real estate being locked up. LG Divine, I'm just watching on the mini-map where they're going. They're going to be a hot topic, a big talking point today. They've worked their way into apps. So it's not a center circle position just yet, but it's not a terrible position, and we have seen quite a lot of apps finishes.
It has to be a pit stop, though, surely. I mean, with the way that Phase 2 is right now, they can hold here to see what happens with Phase 3, because if it does go north, I guess it is a decent position. But, yeah, apps is not really the place you want to be if you're going to look for that chicken dinner, unless it's a complete hard feed on apps. I actually don't want to see apps because I find it to be a little bit too chaotic. I'd love this to go a bit more to the southeast around Potato Hill. I think it would be really a much better battlefield to see whether or not LG Divine can get 4 wins in a row. If it goes to apps, it just becomes a bit of a crapshoot.
Fury are on the scenic route at the moment. They have pretty much driven through the entire map. Waikiki Kamukau gives the tree a good honk as he lands straight in front of it. Yeah, this is such a rough one for Fury because everywhere that they've tried to pull up, someone has already been there and someone has already been shooting at them. So they've gone all the way down to the southern part of the map. They've got to pretty much be happy with the dregs as far as stopping locations are concerned, because there isn't really anywhere else that they can go with only a couple of players this late. A vehicle not looking too crash hot for Waikiki Kamukau either. He's, you know, almost on fire, so need to be aware of that as well.
I like Sharper Esports' position here a little bit better. The compounds north of Pachinki, they got Maximus and Kim Siva. They got Zigzags on this hill south of school and apartments, and then they got Tanoi in school. So just in case it does go north, they can adjust over to school potentially or the hill position. If it does stay around sort of
northeast,
right on top of LG Divine, at this point, why not?
Well,
I like this circle though, because it opens up Potato Hill. You got the Pachinki fields as well. Really opens up the gameplay a lot better than, say, an apartments finish. This is really good. And it also is going to test the steal of LG Divine, because they do need to leave those apartment buildings now. It's no longer the place to be. Tanoi's got the hint as well in school, which is obviously right next to apartment. So he's going to move over to Maximus and Kim Siva. A good position for Sharper Esport. Divine may elect to stay here until phase 4, but they are going to have to move, surely. Purple Mood, not sure why they don't just move down. Check out Potato Hill, which I think Burere might end up taking, actually. It's a really good position for this point in the game. As Waikiki Kamukau and Ronan on your screens, the dynamic duo. As I said, they've got 2 kills. If they can find 2 kills and 2 placement points, job done from here on out. So 4 kills overall.
finally
two
found a
pleasant
motel that they're happy with, you know? They've been able to...
They've checked in.
Yep, they've checked in for at least the next circle. So they've got a little bit of respite for now. But it did sort of feel like they were going to just spend the whole game driving. You know, I used to know a guy back when PUBG first started, first came out, where his strategy was literally to just drive around the whole time. And he, for some reason, was able to make it work. Obviously, these were different days when PUBG was still sort of being figured out.
How did he get kills?
He ran people over.
Okay.
Now, obviously, it didn't work when there was a city finish, but in a field finish, he just kept driving, and no one seemed to shoot cars back then, so it was quite an interesting time to be playing. Anyways, that aside, not the strategy that Fury are going for at the moment, and we're seeing most of these teams rotate down. Now, interestingly, LG Divine haven't actually opted to leave the apartment, so they're happy to hole up there. Hydra Gaming, though, might be the ones to actually end up on Potato Hill. They've been sort of corralled in that direction by Sharper and Bay.
Well, as I said, I think they're just going to have to wait till phase 4 now, and that's probably the plan. No point leaving the apartment buildings until the circle takes the apartment buildings out for you, because if it does shift in any way, shape, or form onto those apartment buildings, then LG Divine are already situated for that. But I highly doubt, from the way that this phase 3 circle has situated, that it's going to shift over there. From the future, making their way close by, Day Trade, Angel Alliance, Fury. There are a few wounded teams down to the south. Fury Ram United to the southeast at the moment as well, with just the 3 players. So I guess the teams that are injured just sort of seeking refuge down to the south. Potato Hill still completely open for the taking. But at this point, I would imagine every team is just sitting there like, yeah, surely that's taken.
Maybe. Basically, perfect center circle shrink. Maybe favoring the west a tiny bit. So Magic, who's in Pachinki, will be actually quite happy to see that. But now you're starting to think, okay, who's got the best position for this circle? And for mine, it'll be Cerberus, with those barns having such a great vision onto Pachinki. Bay as well in that house that's just north of the barns. 2 very, very strong positions in a circle like this.
I'm just trying to look at the circle and see how this can play out. And I'm thinking more so the edge play. I mean, obviously you're looking at it from who's center. Cerberus, Hydra Gaming, Bay, for instance, is Division X Neil just making his way over here. He's actually going to catch an edge of that Molotov, and then is going to be knocked and finished very shortly after that. It's going to be Magic Esports Tonkay finding that kill. But I can see a situation where a team like LG Divine rotates towards the east and sort of wraps around with the blue, clearing teams along the way. Doesn't quite fit their playstyle in the way that they tend to prefer the center.
Yeah.
Bureau Ram's in a good position to do that, but they've only got the 3 players. I could see Day Trade also doing it as well. So wouldn't be surprised to see one of those 3 teams in it towards the end with a high kill point game, as Unicorn going to make their mad dash breach onto Magic Esport, which the way that Magic Esport have been playing PCS3 APAC so far does not bode well for Unicorn. The nade from Dat Blue actually pretty well placed and well primed, and not successful though. Unfortunately, I think it actually went down into the stairwell. So Lolzy on the kill feed will take out Poo Chills. Day Trade lose their advantage. They're down from 4 to 3. They actually pushed into those farmhouses onto Cerberus.
Yeah,
so that fight has been going on at the moment while watching this one too on the edge of Pachinki. And this circle, I guess, for phase 4 has really lit the fuse on this final match of the day. It was slow going for the first 15 minutes, but from here on out, I don't think it's going to slow down at all.
Oh, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath, isn't it, Xenox? Victim Rise are the team that is trying to hold off LG Divine, and that is never an easy task, but they're not a bad squad, and they might just be able to do it with the positional advantage they have up the hill. A little bit of hard cover to play with. LG Divine, at the very least, have got themselves into the edge of the circle, though. You're talking about it, that edge play, it's not really LG Divine's style, but now their hand is sort of being forced, and they're going to have to show us what they can do when they're put off kilter a little bit.
Yeah. They're not in the best position in this fight. They're going to have to work hard for it. Fortunately, they are a team that does pretty well, regardless of the situation. If they find a knock, they'll punish, they'll push, they'll be aggressive. If they don't have the information, they'll play safe, they'll play a bit passive, work with what they've got. You can see LG Divine's Levi's just flickering between using that nade or not using the nade. Now elects to throw it out. Look how close together Victim Rise are. They're playing scared. LG Divine is spread. Even though they're in the worse off position, they're the aggressors here. And Victim Rise just don't look ready for this. They might be able to get lucky, find a knockdown or two, but they're just not really looking like the team that wants to take this fight right now. I mean, Chibber, it looks like he's ready to get in that dance here and get out of here.
In the meanwhile, Magic and Day Trade have both been eliminated, so we'll eagerly await where this next circle shift is going to come in. How many grenades does LG Divine have, by the way? They've just been throwing nades this whole time. Yeah, it's gone south over towards the east a little bit. There's a knock onto NAMC. Good spray from Genfos. First player down for LG Divine. Unlikely to be rezzed, and now you're starting to see the third parties maybe come into effect. Purple Mood looking down the hill. Sharper Esport coming across. They hear these shots. It's not going to be fun for LG Divine or for Victim Rise.
I think LG Divine have just slightly misplayed this. NAMC got too aggressive, had no reinforcements close to him, so if he does get knocked, it's going to be essentially his death. And I think LG Divine haven't moved enough, right? Now they got the blue at their back, which is going to start moving in 10 seconds time. They haven't rotated a bit to the south, so they've kept themselves in this really bad position because they've been too eager on trying to flush out Victim Rise. Now they've had another player knocked down, which I believe is Nikki. It doesn't look like this is going to be 4 in a row for LG Divine. If they can pull it off from here, it would be a saint miracle. Victim Rise have held firm, to their credit, at this little compound. Kim Siver, though, opens this up with a knockdown onto Gibberit. Nikki's knocked again by Camels, and this time he is not going to be brought back up. Jun's gone, Levi's is low. LG Divine are unfortunately going to end the night in not so great style, despite the fact they won 3 in a row earlier on. They've won 5 of 8, but it's not going to be 6 of 8, Jordan, surely.
Oh, well.
Not.
I mean, this is more than enough done already from LG Divine tonight. You can't be disappointed with it, even if it is going to be a rough ending for them. They've got more than enough done. They're at 91 points out of 8 games, for God's sake. It's just... They're going at more than 10 a game, which...
Yeah.
Like, more than 11 a game. So...
Well, this is the end of Levi's here, though. So 91 points will be the resting place until next weekend for LG Divine. Genfos was the one who started it, along with Chibberit. He will end it. Victim Rise, to their credit, I kind of backed against them in that fight, but they held strong, they held firm, they didn't get sucked in by the pressure of LG Divine. They played patiently, they waited for an opportunity, they got that knock, and they weren't even really able to go off of that because Sharper Esport came in from the other side, so they were dealing with Sharper Esport. And, well, in the end, Sharper Esport is the team that sends them packing. 3 kills for 6 sacks. So LG Divine are out, but here's the thing. Magic Esport are out. Fury have only got 2, and Buram have only got 3. So those direct teams below LG Divine aren't going to necessarily bridge that gap in this particular game.
No, definitely not. Buram, though, with 3, maybe. Maybe a bit of an argument to be made. We'll see how they go. They're always a good edge team, and they are on the edge with a decent number of players alive. Division X Gaming, or rather Long K, trying to pressure Ferox away as quickly as possible. Luckily for him, Sharper was firing shots into the back of Ferox. That's kind of kept him alive for a little longer, but Zone's going to finish him off in the end. Ferox inside the circle, but they won't be happy to see that kind of a shift. That is a very hard one for them to make work. All the way down to the southeast. They've got the longest route, and they have to go up the hill. They've got Sharper, who's watching them already. If they go on the other side of the hill, they'll be open to the field, which is where Bay is. Cerberus still in their barns. So this is damned if you do, damned if you don't for Ferox. I like this decision at the very least going in the direction of Sharper. They kind of have to. Better the enemy that you know than the one that you don't.
Nine teams remaining. Final game of the day. PCS3 APAC. Of course, we'll have a break during the week, and we'll be back next weekend. Still 16 games to go after this conclusion of match 8. We're a third of the way through, though. After this is all said and done, LG Divine have got a decent lead. It could have been higher, but they did fall early in this match. Jukesy's knocked by Hisaki. Cerberus, they had that farmhouse position. They haven't moved from it. They've been able to get involved in terms of knocks and kills. They had teams breach them, and yet throughout all of that, they've kept all 4 players up. This is the game they needed to have to keep up with the top 4, top 5. And Ferox have continued their turnaround from day one. They've almost picked up 30 points here on day 2. If they had have been able to do that on day 1 as well, they'd be sitting second right now. So a massive turnaround for Ferox. And it's not too little too late. They're only 23 points from second with 16 games to go. So a lot to play for them. A good sign.
Well, it's exactly what we were talking about at the start of the game. We said there was a bottom 5. Now, 3 out of those 5 have actually turned their fortunes around. Bay have done the best of it. They're up to 42. Ferox done a really good job as well, up to 33. And From the Future, who are on 32, might actually be able to increase that quite substantially this game as well. That's the end of Ferox for today, but they can be much happier with what they were able to put in on day 2 compared to day 1, and they've gotten themselves out of that bottom of the pack position. 14 points for Purple Mood, 8 for Unicorns, and it's now a bottom 2.
I'm starting to believe in Fury in this match. Waiki, Kamukau, Ronin, Southside. The only team that's close to them is Angel Alliance, which is Mad Dogs and Algen Bots. They're only a duo as well. So there's no advantage or disadvantage in terms of numbers there. Down to the south, there goes Battle Arena Elites in 8th position. Ronin has pushed in. And those teams up north are all going to battle each other. They're all going to wound each other. And by the time they get down to the south and potentially take on a team like Fury, it might just be a bit more of an even playing field. This game may still have some twists left in the tail. Buriram's another team as well. You certainly can't count out. You mentioned before they got 3 up. They are going to get involved very, very shortly against Purple Mood, you would think. Well, Purple Mood, actually, the way they're rotating is more so towards From the Future. So they're moving away from Buriram. Boss Sense is just going to surprise Gypsy Danger, and From the Future sent packing in 6th very, very quickly. Waiki Kamukau loses out to Mad Dog. Ronin still up, does get that knockdown. So it's a 1 versus 1 between Ronin and Algen Bots down here to the south. Mad Dog is still knocked, hasn't quite been finished yet.
Cerberus, though, coming up the hill in the direction of Ronin, and they are looking to sweep the circle. They are one of the stronger teams with 4 players alive, and you can already get a sense of the strength that they have in this final zone. 2 players up towards the north, 2 players down towards the south. They hear the shots. They want to take advantage of an opportunity to third party, and they're kind of keeping an eye on things. Ronin is... Oh, he's going to cop a grenade. That was a blind one, I think, from Basil. I don't think he knew Ronin was there. And that is a very, very good toss, regardless, but I'm pretty sure it was blind.
Maybe might have peeked over, saw him, and then threw. But you're right, he was just throwing a couple before that around blindly. So maybe. Unfortunately for Fury, they weren't able to get much out of that duo. They did get 1 extra kill, and they also got the placement points. Don't forget about that, finishing in 5th place. Gets them up to 59. So 32 points behind LG Divine. That's the target for Fury for next weekend, and then, of course, the final weekend. It's not impossible with 16 games to go, so they got some work to do, but they're certainly in the race, along with the likes of Buriram, Magic Esports, Cerberus, all still with a very high chance of catching LG Divine if that wonderful team does slip up at any point. Algen Bots playing the snake in the grass role here, but is unsuccessful. Angel Alliance out in 4th place. They did pick up a few points here for the final game of the night, but compared to day number 1, very lackluster. Down to the final 3 teams, though, and everyone's pretty healthy. Purple Mood with 4, Cerberus with 4, Buriram with 3. And they're now up to 4 kills, and I almost would have to back them in here against the 4 members of Purple Mood, who are the second last place team. They do have the numerical advantage. Like Godmeow does have to get that knock, and he does. That was Rocky Jims who was pushing forward, being that front man. Nordro, though, doesn't win his fight against Just Moments, and now that numbers advantage is quite substantial, and along with the fact that Cerberus are now making the push here, looking to third party, looking to get this chicken dinner. Edie has to be quick with this. Gets 1, gets a second one as well onto Boss Sense. There's 1 more just behind. Might go for the revive, but I don't think he's got the time to do this. I think it's going to be a win for Cerberus nonetheless. Buriram are out in 3rd. They did pick up a few kills, and the very wounded Purple Mood are surely just fodder to Cerberus Esports.
Purple Mood's going to give his life up to the zone. That's a deny from him, and Cerberus will finish the day off. It was a fantastic day if you are a Vietnamese fan, though, because the Vietnamese teams picked up all 4 wins. LG Divine, 3 of them. and Cerberus one of them. That'll put Cerberus into 3rd place, Buriram into 2nd, and of course LG Divine in 1st at the end of day number 2. Great performance from Cerberus in the end there, being able to sweep through the remaining couple of teams. Buriram, though, I've got to give them credit. It was something that I was talking about during that game, that they're always very, very solid in any number of fights, and they really ran into a bunch of difficult ones. They were able to frag out. Yeah, they don't get the win, but they get a lot of points out of that game. Gives themselves at least a launching platform for week 2 and week 3 of PCS3 APAC, both for Buriram and for Cerberus. Fury obviously just there as well on 59 points. So that's the top 4, and things are starting to heat up now that LG Divine has really thrown that gauntlet down.
It's a very logjam top 4 though. 62 points, Buriram 59, 59, 55, 51, which is Sharper Esports in 6 on that 51. That rounds out sort of the top 6 there. So you can see the gap between 2nd and 6th is minuscule, but obviously the gap between LG Divine and Buriram is quite substantial, 29 points. So in saying that, with 16 games to go, 29 points, maybe not that big compared to, say, if it was 6 games to go, for instance, which even that would still be mathematically possible. A really good finish, though, to the night, and what a night it was as a whole. Of course, LG Divine picking up the first 3 games. That's right, they won 3 in a row. They couldn't quite win this one, though. It was Cerberus, their sister team from Vietnam, who ended up finishing the night with a much-needed win, because it looked like they were just slowly falling down the standings, being forgotten about in that middle of the pack, that peloton, and now, Jordan, they're back up into the top 3.
Yeah, plenty of teams to sort of throw some accolades on, though, for today. You've got to give a shout-out to Magic, who come back and do a pretty good, solid performance for themselves. Sharper Esports as well, consistent fairly across the board of day 1 and day 2. They're sitting in 6th place. I thought Bay was much better today than what they were on day 1. The same for Ferox, the same for From the Future. So quite a few teams that have been able to improve their result on day 1. But similarly, some teams that have dropped the ball from day 1. I'm looking at the likes of Angel Alliance in particular, who came in 3rd. They're now sitting in 7th. They really slowed down quite a lot. And the same for Victim Rise down in 10th. I think those are the 2 teams that, you know, going into this sort of 5-day break, are going to need to look back at what they've been doing in the last couple of days and think, okay, well, we need to really improve on that, or go back to at least the day 1 form.
That's, of course, a really good point that you just sort of brought up, is the 5-day break. Something that we had last season and the seasons before was usually we'd play on like a Thursday, and then the next game would be on like a Saturday, for instance. So usually there would be that 1-day break in between. So for these teams, it's the first time going from, say, them playing the Saturday and then the Sunday, and not really getting much of a time to reset a little bit or look at the VODs as much and change things up. Now we might see teams go to the VODs, change things up for next weekend, and we could see some very, very different teams come out, maybe with some different strats, and especially look to maybe counter strat against LG Divine in the way they have been playing potentially as well, which is relatively safe, right? They go for position, then from that position they have all their utility, they've got all their players alive, and they're able to come out towards the end and clean up what is remaining. And to a degree, Cerberus kind of played that playbook in this last game. They were able to sit in those farmhouses. They got breached by 1 team. Outside of that, they had it pretty easy on. Then they pushed out, cleaned up towards the end, and a very nice chicken dinner for them was begging. As we sort of close out the day, though, Jordan, just sort of want your thoughts, I guess, on the weekend as a whole. I would imagine, though, it's just all about Divine.
Yeah, it's Divine, 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 really, as far as I'm concerned. They are leading from the front. 91 points out of 8 games is just huge numbers, more than 11 points a game. You know, again, I always go back to 8 to 10 points being a good sort of target to aim for. It's normally around 8 or 9 that is actually the first place team of any given region. If you can go at that many points a game, you're doing really well for yourself, and they're already exceeding that. So that's going to make life so much easier on the downward slope once we get into the second half of the games. It's very similar to what we saw from Q Confirm in Season 1 of PCS APAC. So it's not too much of a surprise, really, I guess, to see LG Divine doing that, given that they won last season as well. They are really proving that they are one of, if not the best teams within APAC at the moment. Here's the match leaderboard, though, from the last game of this evening. Cerberus picking up a nice 18 points. Purple Mood 12, Buriram 11. So a few solid performances up there for them. And luckily for the likes of Cerberus and Buriram and Fury, we saw LG Divine going out with only 1 point from that game. So uncharacteristic from them so far tonight. But the very least, it gives the teams an opportunity to catch up.
Yeah, and a really good game for Purple Mood Esports because they went from 11 points from 7 games to 23 now. So they doubled up there in just that one game. That gets them on 23. It does mean Unicorn Cyber, unfortunately, right down the bottom by themselves. Here is the total leaderboard after 8 games played. Yes, that is correct. It's no error. 5 wins for LG Divine from the first 8 games. 50 placement points. That's probably the one blip, is that the 3 other games that they didn't win, they didn't get any placement points and really didn't do that much. In fact, only 7 points from memory because they had a 6 kill game, a 0 kill game, and now a 1 kill game in those 3 matches. So kind of sets the tone that all of their work has been done in those 5 games. The other 3, basically nothing really. So maybe if they do stop winning at some point, that lead could potentially dwindle down. I'm not saying it's going to, Jordan. I think they're an absolutely amazing team. And maybe they'll do something they couldn't do in PCS2 APAC, which is actually just run away with it. Because if we recall back to about the halfway mark of PCS2 APAC, Divine Esports were very much in top spot by a fair margin. It almost ballooned out to about 60 or 70 points at one point, and then they just stopped. It was like they had won already. They just stopped. Fury were able to come back, and well, we had the very awesome ending that we ended up getting. Obviously, LG Divine ended up winning regardless. But if they can not have that stop and keep going on with it, this could get really ugly for everyone else.
That was a fairly consistent storyline that we've actually seen in APAC. Again, going back to that Q Confirm example where they got off to such a banger of a start, they really slowed down quite substantially on the second half of that tournament. So if you say the same thing happened for LG Divine last season, obviously I wasn't privy quite so much to that. I didn't cast the whole season. But, you know, it's something I think in your mentality maybe where when you're that far ahead, you almost feel like, okay, well, we can relax a little bit. Maybe we don't need to fight quite as hard. And then there's those teams that are quite hungry to come back from behind. You mentioned Fury, and I think that that's going to be a place that they are going to be looking to come from again. Coming into next week is coming back from behind. So it's those kinds of rosters, Cerberus as well, Buriram, that are really going to be hungry going into week 2. And the question is going to be, can LG Divine match that hunger, match that mentality coming into, you know, week 2 and week 3 as to whether or not they're going to be able to keep that same pace up that they have here in week 1.
Yeah, well, the LG Divine show has unfortunately come to a close today here for APAC. We are going to bid everyone farewell. We will, of course, return next weekend for our next set of matches. In a few hours' time, though, PCS3 Europe will be on the stream, so come back in a few hours and try again, get those pick 'em challenges and watch some more awesome PUBG action. But as for APAC, that's us done for the weekend. We'll see you next weekend.